Chapter 1722. With that, Jianshun turned into a streak of light and chased after Ando Fu with unbelievable speed. At that moment, Jianshun's speed had reached the limit. Not only had he exceeded the range of the naked eye, but even the senses of the early god soul were unable to see him clearly. Even with Mo Ling's strength, he could only catch a blurry streak of white light when faced with Jianshun's current speed. Heavens, what speed! Mo Ling cried out. His face was filled with shock. Even he was shocked by Jianshun's current speed. He was truly as fast as a bolt of lightning. No, he was even faster than a bolt of lightning. Ando Fu comprehended the laws of wind. Even though he was not the fastest, he was known as the fastest in the world. Once he fled, very few people could catch up to him. However, before Jianshun's linear lightning release, Ando Fu's laws of wind seemed as slow as a tortoise. In less than a second, Jianshun caught up to Ando Fu, who had vanished from sight, as if he had turned into a bolt of lightning. Impossible! How can he be so fast? Ando Fu's face immediately changed drastically when he sensed Jianshun chasing after him. He was filled with shock. As soon as he thought of that, Jianshun had already arrived behind him. Ando Fu could even clearly sense the threatening sword intent from behind. Fast! It was just too fast. Ando Fu did not even have the time to think. He did not even have the time to dodge. With just a thought, Jianshun had passed through his back. He had directly pierced through Ando Fu's body with his sword. It was an extremely terrifying sight. Spurt! Blood constantly spurted from Ando Fu's mouth. His face immediately became sheet white and haggard. A bowl-sized hole had appeared on his chest. His flesh and organs had all vanished. In particular, strands of sword chi flickered around the wound. Jianshun had passed through Ando Fu's chest with his sword. Logically speaking, Jianshun should have left behind a bowl-sized hole with his size, but Jianshun was just too fast. Even the space around him was affected by his speed, causing his body to elongate. As a result, the hole he left behind was only the size of a bowl. Ando Fu was extremely shocked as he stared at Jianshun in fear. He was so shocked that he could not say anything. Strands of power from the laws of wind condensed around him as he used the laws of wind to fend off the remaining laws of the sword in his wound. If the laws of the sword continued to damage his body, his wounds would rapidly worsen. In the distance, the lightning vanished, and Jianshun reappeared. His white clothes and hair fluttered as he steadily flew over with the flying snow sword. He stared at Ando Fu coldly and said, "Your laws of wind are fast, but my sword technique is even faster. Do you think you can escape from my sword technique? May I ask what sword technique that is?" Ando Fu asked with a trembling voice. He was dispirited. He had never thought that Jianshun would be so impressive. Not only was his strength so shocking that even Lu Tian could not fight back, but he was also so fast as well. It was fine if he could not defeat his opponent, but he could not even escape. Linear lightning release, Jianshun said emotionlessly. Linear lightning release, linear lightning release. It really is the speed of lightning, Ando Fu murmured. His hair was disheveled, and he was in a horrible shape. He seemed like a beggar. Right now, he did not seem like a sage-like person at all. However, Ando Fu's face lit up soon afterwards. He stared at the cold Jianshun with shining eyes and said, "You can't kill me. If I die, the news of the divine King Duanmu's jade will immediately spread through the entire Dong and province. It might even reach the other provincial cities of the divine kingdom of Pingtian in an extremely short amount of time. Although our Dong and province doesn't have an overgod, 5 of the 36 provincial cities of the divine kingdom of Pingtian have overgods. Aside from them, there are quite a few overgods in the royal capital. If they receive the news, they'll definitely hurry over. If you want to prevent the news of the divine King Duanmu's jade from spreading, you can't kill me." Jianshun snorted coldly. He pointed the flying snow sword at Ando Fu's forehead and said coldly, "How are you going to make me believe you? Moreover, even if you really do have arrangements, the news of the divine King Duanmu's jade won't spread as long as the news of your death doesn't spread. Once I die, my life stone will shatter. Even if the news doesn't spread, the people I've arranged will know, said Ando Fu. Brother Jianshun, please wait. Mo Ling's voice rang out from afar. He quickly arrived before Jianshun and stared at Jianshun with extremely mixed feelings. He said extremely politely, Brother Jianshun, you can't kill Ando Fu. He's telling the truth. Once he dies, the news of the divine King Duanmu's jade will immediately spread. It'll be extremely bad for us. Jianshun frowned slightly. Lu Tian is already dead. Will Lu Tian's people spread the news of the divine King Duanmu's jade as well? Mo Ling also frowned. In the past few years, our Mo clan has been secretly investigating this matter as well, but we've only found out that the Ando clan has a backup plan. It's just as Ando Fu said. Once he dies, his life stone will shatter, and the people in possession of the news of the divine King Duanmu's jade will spread the news rapidly. However, we've never been able to find the person from the Ando clan. As for whether the Lu family has a backup plan like our Mo clan and the Ando clan, we don't know. This is because our Mo clan has been secretly investigating for several tens of thousand years, but we haven't found any information at all. Jianshun slowly put down the flying snow sword and said to Ando Fu, Ando Fu, I won't kill you. Hand over your Ando clan's divine King Duanmu's jade. At the same time, I want all the wealth of your Ando clan. Ando Fu glared at him and said in exasperation, You want all the wealth of our Ando clan? Aren't you going too far? That's the foundation of our Ando clan. I can give you the divine King Duanmu's jade. At the same time, our Ando clan will keep this a secret, but we can't give you all the wealth of our clan. Compared to the wealth of your clan, your life, and the lives of everyone in your clan, I think you know very well which is more important. If you want the Ando clan to continue standing, hand over all your wealth obediently. Otherwise, I'll kill you right now and directly go to your Ando clan. I'll still be able to obtain all your wealth. Although the news of the divine King Duanmu's jade will be leaked by your people, the people of the Lu family might have already leaked it. It doesn't matter whether your people leak it or not, Jianshun said coldly. Ando Fu's face became uneasy. The light in his eyes flickered for a while before he made up his mind. All right, our Ando clan can give you everything you want, but you have to promise that you won't harm our Ando clan. Ando Fu had no other choice. If his clan's wealth was gone, he could slowly earn it back. However, if his clan was gone and he lost his life, he would really have nothing left. Even if he had an astonishing amount of wealth, he would not be alive to enjoy it. Jianshun smiled. As long as your Ando clan doesn't do anything out of line, I naturally won't harm you. However, you can't leave my side during this period of time. Booms rang out in the distance. Several 100,000 kilometers away from the Mo clan, the poison god Datura was attacking a formation wildly. Goddamned Lu Tian, I shouldn't have agreed to deal with the Mo clan in the first place. You've cast down this formation to prevent the people of the Mo clan from escaping, but it's trapped me now. I can't leave if I don't get through this formation, Lu Tian sneered. Chapter 1723. Poison god Datura cursed. Even though she had killed Lu Tian with her own hands, Lu Tian was still the reason why she was in such a state. Her hatred for Lu Tian was still unquenchable. At that moment, poison goddess Datura did not hold back at all. She used her full strength, attacking the formation that prevented her from leaving like a madman. Various techniques and battle skills were unleashed one after another, causing the surroundings to rumble. Potent toxins filled the air. Suddenly, poison goddess Datura's face changed. She cried out, Oh no, that person is actually caught up to Ando Fu. What kind of terrifying speed is this? Even the senses of my soul can only capture a blurry afterimage. Poison goddess Datura was extremely shocked. The senses of her soul had always enveloped the surroundings, so she naturally captured Jianshun's movements as he chased after Ando Fu. No wonder that person called Jianshun didn't chase after me earlier. I thought he would be kind enough to spare me, but it seems like Jianshun has such terrifying speed. He's not afraid of me running at all. Moreover, this space has been sealed up by Lu Tian's formation, so I can't escape even if I want to, poison goddess Datura thought to herself. A thought rapidly crossed the poison god Datura's mind. She clenched her teeth and revealed a determined expression. She threw the wooden staff in her hand with a pained expression. At the same time, her hands formed a seal as she cried out, "Explode!" As poison god Dachira uttered the word explode, the wooden staff immediately produced a great boom. Under the impact of the violent shockwave, a crack immediately appeared in the formation. A sliver of joy appeared in poison goddess Dachira's eyes. Without the slightest hesitation, he used a secret technique and burned his blood essence. His body turned into a blur as he fled through the crack. After that, he didn't dare to stop at all, fleeing into the distance as quickly as he could. The god that Lu Tian invited has actually escaped. Ando Fu, does she know about the Divine King's jade? Mo Ling asked as he looked in the direction that poison goddess Dachira had fled in. Ando Fu had already surrendered now. His status was equivalent to a prisoner. When he heard what Mo Ling said, he replied, "That woman doesn't know about God King Duanmu's jade." In reality, she had some grievances with Lu Tian in the past. Lu Tian invited her this time because he wanted to use the Mo clan to get rid of this woman. Jinshin glanced in the direction that poison goddess Dachira had fled in, but he did not mind. He said to Mo Ling, "Brother Mo Ling, let's go back. Although I don't know if Lu Tian has left anything behind, we need to be prepared for the Divine King's jade to be exposed." "We'll do as Brother Jianshan says." Mo Ling clasped his hands together. Mo Ling clasped his fist at Jianshan. After witnessing Jianshan's terrifying strength, he could not help but treat Jianshan with much more respect. It was as if he had accepted Jianshan as his master. Jianshan and Mo Ling immediately left, flying back to the Mo clan. Ando Fu followed beside them as well. He was dispirited. When Jianshan and Mo Ling returned to the Mo clan, the place had already become peaceful. Although the protective barrier was still active, all the people from the two clans who had attacked the barrier had fled long ago. Clearly, they had fled after seeing their god defeated. The patriarch immediately became extremely excited when he saw Mo Ling and Jianshan return. He immediately flew out from the barrier and said, "Ancestor, you've finally returned. How's the situation?" As he said that, he glanced past the dispirited Ando Fu. A strange light immediately flashed through his eyes. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell many things from Ando Fu's expression, which made him extremely excited. Xingfeng passed down the orders. Everyone in the Mo clan should begin hunting down the remaining members of the Lu family. Lu Tian has sealed off the surrounding 1,000,000 kilometers with formations. The people of the Lu family won't be able to escape, Mo Ling said coldly. "Yes, ancestor." The patriarch was overjoyed as he immediately went to make arrangements. Afterwards, Mo Ling said to Ando Fu, "Ando Fu, I'll leave the people of your Ando clan to you. You don't need me to tell you what you need me to do, right?" Naturally, Mo Ling would deal with the aftermath of the battle. Jianshan directly arrived before the bloodied Shunjian. After checking on Shunjian's wounds, he immediately helped Shunjian to the 7th hall. Along the way, everyone in the Mo clan, whether it was the elders, the upper echelon, or the guards, all bowed towards Jianshan and Shunjian politely. In particular, the elders looked at Jianshan with mixed feelings. The supreme strength Jianshan had displayed today had shocked all of them. Shiyu, in particular, felt extremely awkward. She had opposed Mo Yin, saving the two of them in the past, and she had even personally asked them to leave when Jianshan woke up in the Mo clan. In the end, if it were not for Mo Yin's desperate efforts to keep them, Jianshan and Shunjian probably would have left the Mo clan long ago. When she had broken through to late deity, she had been indifferent to Jianshan's congratulations because she had treated Jianshan as an origin realm cultivator. Naturally, she could not be bothered to glance at him. However, only today did she discover in shock that Jianshan was actually so powerful. He was an early god. As the ancestor of a large organization, Lu Tian was actually unable to fight back at all against Jianshan. This had an extremely great impact on Shiyu. In particular, Jianshan's fluttering white robes, fluttering hair, and wielding the flying snow sword had left an unerasable mark in her head. Since you're so powerful, why do you pretend to be immortal? You don't have the bearing and dignity of an expert at all. Even when the origin realm guards of the clan look down on you, you don't become angered at all. Do you really not care about that? She stared at the seventh hall as her feelings became extremely mixed. Even early gods can be killed effortlessly in front of you. That's right. With your strength, even destroying our MO clan is a piece of cake. Even the ancestor is not your opponent. You already possess such a great status, so why would you lower yourself to the level of these ant-like people in the MO clan? You don't care about them at all, Jianshun said with a smile. Within the seventh hall, Shun Jian ingested the healing pills Mo Ling had given him. He currently sat on the jade bed and healed. After learning the details from Jianshun, Shun Jian became stern as well. He said, Lu Tian is crafty and cunning. He actually invited a god to block your profound sword chi. How could someone like that not have any backup plans? He'll definitely make the same arrangements as the Mo clan and the Ando clan. Now that he's dead, the news of Duanmu Divine King's Jade might have been leaked by the people of the Lu family. Chapter 1724. Very soon, Jianshun made his way out of the seventh hall. He planned on immediately going to the Lu family to collect the remaining wealth of the Lu family. Although the ancestor and most of the elders of the Lu family had come, the patriarch of the Lu family did not take part in this operation. As the patriarch of the clan, he definitely possessed quite a lot of divine crystals. Apart from that, almost all of these large clans had built their own treasure vaults. Most of their wealth would be stored in the treasure vaults and protected by the entire clan. Cultivation resources like divine crystals were almost all stored in specialized treasure vaults. It was unlikely that they would leave all of it with their ancestors. This was because divine crystals were consumables that were constantly circulated. They would come and go frequently, so it was quite common for the ancestor of a clan to enter seclusion for several thousand years, or even 10,000 years. If they were left with divine crystals, it would be inconvenient for them to store them. However, if they were left with the patriarch, they would be worried that the patriarch would be robbed and suffer great losses. As a result, many clans of a certain size would not leave all their wealth to a single person. Instead, they would store it in special treasuries, protected by formations. It was extremely safe. When Jianshun made his way out of the seventh hall, the elders of the Mo clan had all left to hunt down the remnants of the Lu family. Even Mo Ling had personally gone to deal with the godhood elders of the Lu family. The people of the Ando clan who had fled earlier had all gathered in an empty area outside the Mo clan. All of them were dejected and dispirited. To no surprise, Ando Fu was among them. Clearly, they knew that the Ando clan had been defeated. They were basically prisoners of the Mo clan now. Even the ancestor of the Ando clan could not change anything. A gleam of light flashed through Jianshun's eyes when he saw Ando Fu. He definitely could not leave Ando Fu here, just in case he went to the Lu family and Ando Fu had no one to suppress him. If that happened, he would end up causing quite a mess. He might even abandon the clansmen of the Ando clan and flee by himself. Although he was heavily injured, Mo Ling would not be able to catch up to him if he fled for his life. Ando Fu, come with me to your Ando clan, Jianshun said to Ando Fu. Jianshun said to Ando Fu. He had originally planned on going to the Lu family, but now he was going to the Ando clan. Ando Fu was in low spirits. He nodded slowly and did not say anything else. He directly took Jianshun to the Ando clan. Clearly, he was going to take the Ando clan's wealth. Brother Mo Ling, I'll be heading to the Ando clan first. I'll have to trouble you to collect the wealth of the Lu family for me, Jianshun said to Mo Ling secretly. Brother Jianshun, don't worry. Leave it to me. Several 100,000 kilometers away, Mo Ling killed the last deity realm elder of the Lu clan with lightning speed. He then sent a voice transmission to Jianshun and flew towards the Lu clan with Shiyu and another deity realm elder. Now that the Lu clan no longer had a heavenly god in charge, there were only 2 deity stage elders left. Although they had the same protective formation as the Lu clan, With Mo Ling's heavenly god tier abilities, he could definitely kill his way in before their protective formation was activated. Jian Shun, Ando Fu, and Mo Ling arrived before the formation that Lu Tian had cast down. They did not get through it immediately. Instead, they waited for a while. Only after all the remaining members of the Lu family had been wiped out by the people of the Mo clan did the three of them break through the formation together. They hurried off to the Ando clan and the Lu family. The mountains where the Ando clan resided were shrouded in clouds and mist. The presence of immortals permeated the air. Spiritual beasts ran about on the ground while cranes danced in the sky. It seemed like a paradise. When they arrived at the Ando clan, Jian Shun was filled with praises for the scenery. He clicked his tongue in wonder. He had to admit that the Ando clan had done an extremely ingenious job in this aspect. Jian Shun followed Ando Fu into the Ando clan. At this moment, Ando Fu had already recovered his sagely appearance. His wounds had temporarily stabilized after ingesting some healing pills. Although he had not completely recovered, he had stopped worsening at the very least. Jian Shun became especially low-key at this moment. He followed Ando Fu into the Ando clan, taking a small step behind him. He seemed like Ando Fu's follower instead. However, Jian Shun focused all of his attention on Ando Fu. He paid close attention to his every action to prevent him from doing anything out of line. After all, this was the main base of the Ando clan. Jian Shun needed to be cautious. He was not afraid that he would encounter trouble here. Instead, he did not want Ando Fu to escape at a time like this. The Ando clan, Mo clan, and Lu family had indeed produced overgods in the past, but Jian Shun had learned from Mo Ling that the three overgods had spent their entire lives on the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. They did not purposefully manage the three clans they had founded. As a result, they did not leave behind any overgods in the three clans. All the defenses of the clans had been added by the descendants of the clans one by one. Apart from the ancestors who founded the three clans, there was not a single overgod. As a matter of fact, there was not even a late god, so the defenses they cast down were naturally not particularly powerful. When Jian Shun entered the Ando clan, the 18 powerful clans that ruled over the entire province had already gathered in the distant provincial city of the Dong and province. They had all sent out a god, so a total of 18 gods had gathered. They were engaged in an intense debate over the distribution of the high-grade divine crystal mine in the Dark Cloud Mountains. Out of all the powerful clans in the Dong and province, our Hua family, Dong family, and Nanyan family are the most powerful. They all possess late gods, so our three clans should take the largest share. We'll each take a portion of this high-grade divine crystal mine. Each of us should have a share of the mine, a red-robed old man said leisurely with squinted eyes. He was a god from the Hua family, one of the three most powerful clans in the Dong and province. Although the three peak clans of the Dong and province did not get along very well, and they had even competed against each other many times, they all cast aside their past differences with the appearance of the high-grade divine crystal mine. They worked together to obtain the largest share of the profits. They all understood that the high-grade divine crystal mine was just too juicy. There was not a single organization in the Dong and province that could take it all for themselves. Even if the three peak clans worked together, they would only be able to take a share of the profits. There are a total of 18 clans gathered here today. Your Hua clan, Dong clan, and Nanyan clan will take 30%. While the remaining 15 clans will only be able to take 70%. In total, each clan will not even get 0.5%. Our Jin clan will be the first to disagree with such a distribution plan. The Jin clan's heavenly god immediately objected. He did not show the slightest fear when facing the three clans. The three clans were powerful, but they only had an additional late god. Just a single late god was not enough to reign supreme in the Dong and province. Even if the three clans worked together, they would not be able to fend off the 15 other powerful clans. This was because the total number of gods from the 15 clans was enough to completely crush the three peak clans. Even if there were late gods, they only needed to send out 2 or 3 mid gods to keep them busy. Unless the late gods of the three clans possessed supreme battle prowess on par with the prodigies of large sects, they would not be able to make the three clans fear them. The god from the Hua family did not become angered by the objection of the god from the Jin family. The Jin family was an extremely powerful clan in the Dong and province. Even though they could not compare to the three peak clans, they did not have any fewer gods than the three peak clans. The only flaw was that they did not have a late god. In my opinion, it's better to split the high-grade divine crystal mine evenly. Another god said. He represented one of the weaker clans in the Dong and province. Even the weakest clans had at least 3 heavenly gods overseeing them. Split it evenly? You're dreaming. Your Kong family only has 3 early gods. Not only does our Dong family have a late god, we even have 2 mid gods and 2 early gods. That's a total of 5 gods. What right does your Kong family have to get the same share as our Dong family? A god from the Dong family snorted coldly. With that, the expression of the god from the Dong family suddenly changed. With a flip of his hand, a jade talisman for communication appeared in his hand. After reading the message on the jade talisman, the expression of the god from the Dong family changed drastically. He no longer cared about the splitting of the divine crystals. He immediately stood up and clasped his hands at everyone. Everyone, I have matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave first. We'll talk about the high-grade divine crystal mine another day. Before he had even finished speaking, the god from the Dong family left in a hurry. Before the god from the Dong family had even left the hall, the god from the Hua family and Nanyun clan received the message as well. Their expressions changed drastically, and they bid farewell to everyone without any hesitation before leaving in a hurry. Afterwards, all the gods gathered there received the message as well. Without any exception, all of their expressions changed drastically when they saw the contents of the message. They no longer cared about the high-grade divine crystals and left as if their butts were on fire. In the blink of an eye, all the people from the 18 powerful clans who were still discussing the splitting of the high-grade divine crystal mine had left. The majestic discussion hall fell silent in a single moment. The entire provincial city of the Dong and province was thrown into an uproar with the news. A divine king's dwelling has actually appeared in the Dong and province. That's just unbelievable. Is the news true or false? I've heard of the divine king Duanmu. He's an extremely powerful divine king. It's said that he's reached the peak of the divine king realm and is only a step away from the primordial realm. What? The divine king Duanmu's strength has reached the peak of the divine king realm? Doesn't that mean he's even more powerful than the divine king of our divine kingdom of Pingtian? Don't compare the divine king of the divine kingdom of Pingtian to the divine king Duanmu. They're not on the same level at all. If the divine king of the divine kingdom of Pingtian fought with Duanmu, the divine king would be able to wipe out the divine king with a single hand because Duanmu is a divine king who has made it onto the divine king's throne. Although he's not ranked in the top 1,000, he's a supreme expert as long as he makes it onto the throne. What? The divine king Duanmu has even made it onto the divine king's throne? It said that countless people who have reached the peak of the divine king realm in the saints' world have attempted to make it onto the divine king's throne, but there are only a handful of people who can actually make it onto the throne. It said that even some prodigies can't make it onto the throne. Heavens, the dwelling of such a supreme divine king, is actually in our Dong and province. This is unbelievable. Let's go find the Mo clan and the Ando clan. It said that the people of the 2 clans know where the divine king Duanmu's dwelling is, and they possess the key to the divine king's dwelling. Chapter 1725. The Mo clan and the Ando clan were not the only ones who had made arrangements for the news regarding the divine king's jade. The Liu family had made arrangements as well. Soon after Liu Tian's death, the news regarding the divine king's jade spread through the Dong and province. Even though the sudden news regarding the divine king's dwelling was rather surreal in a tiny provincial city like the Dong and province that did not even possess an overgod, many people even suspected that the news was fake and was fabricated by some meddlesome people. However, there are also some people who believe that it was better to be safe than sorry. They left the Dong and province as soon as possible and headed to where the Mo clan and the Ando clan were. Many of these people were at reciprocity, while there were also a few deities. There were even a few gods. However, these gods did not belong to powerful clans in the Dong and province. Instead, they were gods from other regions. Although they knew that even if the news regarding the Divine King's dwelling was true, they would not be able to participate in the battle for the fortuitous encounters with their cultivation. However, that was not enough to stop them from feeling excited. They could not stop them from wanting to take a look. At the same time, many of them still hoped that they would be blessed by the heavens. News of the Divine King's dwelling has spread in the Dong and province. Send this news back to the clan. Immediately report this matter to the patriarch as soon as possible. The Divine King Duanmu is a supreme divine king. Once he obtains Duanmu's legacy, he'll definitely soar. Even if he doesn't obtain the legacy, he'll be rich enough to rival an entire country if he obtains the Divine King Duanmu's treasures. If the people of the Dong and province obtain the Divine King Duanmu's treasures, an overgod will definitely appear in the Dong and province. It might even be possible for him to become a divine king in the future. No, we can't let the treasures end up in the hands of the Dong and province. Many cultivators from other regions reported the appearance of the Duanmu Divine Kings, Jade, in various parts of the provincial city. Regardless of whether it was true or not, they did not dare to slack off at all. At the same time, all the gods in the 18 powerful clans in the Dong and province emerged from seclusion. Even some of the gods who had gone out on expeditions were sent back as soon as possible. Immediately send people to the Mo clan and the Ando clan to check the authenticity of this matter. Investigate immediately. It doesn't matter if the news about the Divine King Duanmu's cave is true or not. Investigate immediately and quickly. The speed of a deity is too slow. It'll take a lot of time to get there. Let the heavenly gods go there personally. At that moment, basically all the clans in the Dong and province passed down the same orders. Even though many clans doubted the news about the Divine King Duanmu's cave, they were unable to remain calm when faced with such news. They were afraid that it was true. 3 powerful presences permeated the dark cloud mountains within the territory of the Lu family, enveloping the entire mountain range. Every single presence was at the level of gods. The 3 gods who watched over the place came from the 3 most powerful clans in the Dong and province, the Hua family, the Dong family, and the Nanyang clan. Even though they were only early gods, no one dared to try anything with them present. There's a divine king's dwelling in the Dong and province. The key to the dwelling and the exact location of the dwelling are in the hands of the Mo clan and the Ando clan. At that moment, the 3 gods snapped open their eyes at the same time. Clearly, they had received the news from the Dong and province. Afterwards, the 3 of them did not hesitate at all. They immediately rushed towards the Mo clan and the Ando clan. A dignified, middle-aged man in luxurious robes threw a tantrum within a majestic mansion in the Dong and province. Who is it? Who leaked the news about the Divine King Duanmu? Johnny, tell me what's going on. Why has it become like this? All the preparations I've put in so many years have been for nothing. A black-clothed man stood before the middle-aged man. He seemed to have fused into the darkness, where it was impossible to discover his existence without looking carefully. Patriarch, if I've guessed correctly, the news should have been leaked by the Lu family, said the black-clothed man. The Lu family? Impossible. How can the Lu family leak something so important? The middle-aged man asked sternly. He was so furious that his entire body trembled. Patriarch, the Lu family, and the Ando clan worked together to deal with the Mo clan not long ago, but they were defeated instead. The Ando clan surrendered, and Lu Tian died in battle. I believe that the news about the Divine King Duanmu was leaked because of Lu Tian's arrangements. He only did this to prevent the Mo clan and the Ando clan from secretly gathering the Duanmu Divine King Duanmu to deal with them. That's why Lu Tian made such arrangements, said Johnny. What? Lu Tian and the Ando clan worked together to deal with the Mo clan? Johnny, why didn't you tell me something so important earlier? The middle-aged man flew into a rage. He had completely lost his usual composure. The Liu family and the Ando clan were extremely cautious when dealing with the Mo clan. The people we planted in their clans were unable to find an opportunity to leak the news. "I only received the news recently," said Johnny. "God damn it. God damn it." The middle-aged man paced back and forth in the room. His face was terrifyingly sunken as he said resentfully, "I knew about the news about the Duanmu Divine, King Duanmu's jade long ago. With our clan strength, it would be a piece of cake for us to obtain the 3 pieces of jade from the Mo clan, the Ando clan, and the Liu family. I just didn't want this matter to raise the attention of the other powerful clans in the Dong and province, which was why I never dared to move against the 3 clans. I always acted secretly, wanting to obtain the 3 pieces of jade without anyone noticing. I never thought that the news of the divine King Duanmu's jade would be leaked, and it would cause an uproar in the city. Everyone knows about it. I've really angered you." The middle-aged man became angrier and angrier as he spoke. He directly slammed his hand on the table before him, shattering the expensive table. He was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If it were not for the fact that he had so many misgivings about the divine King Duanmu's jade, the 3 pieces of jade would have ended up in his hands long ago. "Patriarch, the ancestor has summoned you." At this moment, a female servant's voice rang out from outside. Chapter 17:26. Very soon, the middle-aged man entered a majestic hall. The hall was empty. There were only 4 people in white robes at the very front. They sat in the air, and the pressure they gave off was so great that all of them were gods. Wainer Yi greets the 4 grandfathers. The middle-aged man bowed towards the 4 gods. He was extremely respectful. "Xiao Yi, there's news of the divine king's dwelling in the Dong province. As the patriarch of the clan, you should be paying attention to all the news in the outside world at all times. You're much more well-informed than us old bastards who spend most of our time in seclusion. Tell me, how much of the news about the divine king's dwelling is fake?" said one of the gods. Wainer Yi panicked when he heard that. He immediately clasped his hands. "Ancestor, the news about the divine King Duanmu's dwelling is absolutely true. It's not fake at all. Our Wainer clan must hurry to the Mo clan as quickly as possible. We can't waste any more time." Hearing this, the 4 heavenly gods sitting cross-legged in the void all paled. The 4 gods' faces all changed, and their eyes burned with desire. "Xiao Yi, what did you say? The divine King Duanmu's dwelling is real? There's really a divine king's dwelling hidden in our Dong province? How did you confirm that it was real?" "The divine King Duanmu's dwelling is real. Great-grandfathers, let's set off immediately. Please allow your great-grandson to tell you the details slowly along the way," Wainer Yi said rather urgently. The 4 gods calmed down very soon, and the desire in their eyes gradually vanished, replaced by sternness. They murmured, "It's actually real. Then it'll be troublesome." The news of the dwelling has already caused quite a stir in the provincial city, and the provincial city is a place where all sorts of people live. There are many people from other provincial cities and even divine kingdoms. They must have spread the news already. A single divine king's estate is enough to cause sovereigns to fight over it, let alone a peerless divine king's estate. The other forces will most likely think that this news is fake. Even if they take it seriously enough, they will still send some people to investigate. It's impossible for them to believe a piece of news that they don't know if it's true or not. Therefore, we still have a chance. That's right. We still have an advantage. Quick, there's no time to lose. Let's set off right now and hurry to the Mo clan as quickly as possible. It's a pity that Xiao Yin still hasn't returned from his travels. Otherwise, our Wainer clan would be even stronger. Sigh, I wonder how Xiao Yin is doing right now. He's the most talented person in our Wainer clan, reaching early god in just 30,000 years and reaching mid-god in 5,000 years. It's been almost 10,000 years since he left the clan. Afterwards, the 4 gods left the clan with Wainer Yi, flying towards the Mo clan as quickly as they could. Along the way, Wainer Yi told the 4 gods everything he had learned in the past few years without holding back at all. Jianshun, Ando Fu, and Lu Tian had all returned to the Mo clan. They gathered together in the Mo clan again. Brother Jianshun, here's all the wealth of the Lu family. We've even collected the space rings of all the Godhood elders and Origin Realm clansmen of the Lu family who attacked our Mo clan. They're all in here. Please check them. Mo Ling passed the space ring to Jianshun. Jianshun accepted the space ring and scanned it with the senses of his soul. Indeed, he discovered several thousand space rings lying in there quietly. Jianshun understood that the Lu family had probably been wiped out by Mo Ling when he saw so many space rings. Jianshun stowed the space rings away. Right now, he basically possessed all the wealth of the Lu family and the Ando clan. Just the divine crystals alone had reached an extremely shocking number. Brother Mo Ling, in order to prevent the news of the Divine King's jade from leaking, I suggest we enter the Divine King's dwelling immediately. Jianshun said to Mo Ling, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Brother Jianshun, please wait for a moment. I'll go make arrangements for the clan immediately. Entering the dwelling this time will be different from before. If the news of the Divine King's jade really does leak out, the powerful clans of the Dong and province won't be able to find us. They'll definitely make things difficult for the clansmen of the Mo clan. As a result, I need to disperse all the clansmen of the Mo clan so that they can all hide. Whether they can hide or not will depend on their luck, Mo Ling said sternly before immediately making arrangements. Jianshun nodded. Although Mo Ling seemed burly, he was not stupid. He made the same arrangements as Ando Fu. When Ando Fu had come with Jianshun, he had also dispersed the entire Ando clan. All the clansmen had scattered to hide. Clearly, it was impossible for them to take everyone with them into the Divine King's dwelling this time. Only the Godhood elders could enter with them. Although they could take their clansmen in through spatial containers, it was not necessarily safe in God King Duanmu's dwelling. Once they ran into danger, all of them would die. As a result, they had no choice but to leave their clansmen outside. Father, great-grandfather, if you're all gone, what will happen to me? Sister Shiyu, will I never be able to see you again? Sob, sob, sob. Mo Yan's sobs rang out from the Mo clan. She currently hugged the patriarch's arm as tears pooled in her eyes. She was reluctant to part with them and was extremely sad. Yin listen to father. Find a place to hide. Father and sister, you are going to an extremely dangerous place with great-grandfather. Even great-grandfather won't be able to protect you there, and he might even die with his strength. As a result, we don't dare to take you with us. The patriarch comforted her. His eyes were filled with reluctance to part with her. He had no idea whether he would be able to see his precious daughter again once he left. Although he had entered the Divine King's dwelling 2 or 3 times, he still felt lingering fear about the dangers inside. Although Mo Yin faced the risk of being captured by a powerful clan if she remained outside, it was clearly much safer outside compared to the Divine King's dwelling. If you all leave, leaving me all alone, what will I do? Mo Yin was filled with pain. She was like a lonely girl who had lost her family. She was filled with helplessness and pitifulness. Miss Mo Yin, don't panic. If your father won't take you, I'll take you. At this moment, a gentle voice rang out. Jianshun walked over with a smile and said to Mo Yin. Chapter 17:27. When Mo Yin heard Jianshun's voice, it was like seeing the light of dawn in the darkness. She immediately felt a sliver of hope. Is what you're saying true? Are you really willing to take me with you? Mo Yin looked at Jianshun excitedly. Jianshun nodded with a smile. I can take you with me, but you need to understand that the place we're going to this time is extremely dangerous, so I can't leave you outside. You need to be obedient and stay in a divine hall that I carry with me. Only then can I guarantee your safety. Jianshun could ignore the other people of the Mo clan, but Jianshun had to take Mo Yin with him to the Divine King's dwelling. With her strength at sainthood, she would probably be in danger if she remained outside. Moreover, she was the daughter of the patriarch of the Mo clan. If the powerful clans of the Dong and province learnt about the Duanmu Divine King's dwelling, it would be very difficult for Mo Yin to escape. Before long, All the clansmen of the Mo clan disguised themselves and dispersed. Even though all of them were filled with doubt, they knew that the Mo clan must have encountered unprecedented trouble since the ancestor had told them to scatter and hide. For hours later, the Mo clan became empty. All the clansmen had left. Only the elders and the patriarch remained. They hovered in the air as they watched everything with mixed feelings. "Brother Jianshen, let's set off," Mo Ling said to Jianshen. Jianshen glanced at Mo Yen. With a wave of his hand, the bright moon divine hall immediately appeared out of nowhere, hovering in the air as a huge divine hall. As soon as the bright moon divine hall appeared, it immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. Whether it was the elders of the Mo clan or the Ando clan, they all stared at the divine hall curiously. They all wondered inside. They really could not understand why someone as powerful as Jianshen would carry such a fragile divine hall with him. This was because the elders could tell with a single glance that the bright moon divine hall was not powerful. Origin realm experts could smash through the divine hall, while just the shockwaves from a battle between godhood experts could shatter it. It was extremely fragile. "Miss Mo Yin, go stay in the divine hall for a few days first," Jianshen said to Mo Yin. At the same time, the door to the bright moon divine hall slowly opened at that moment. "Jianshen, you have to let me out once we get to a safe place, or I'll suffocate to death in there alone," said Mo Yin. Afterwards, she bid farewell to the patriarch and Shiyu. She pursed her lips and entered the bright moon divine hall reluctantly. The patriarch opened his mouth. He wanted to say that he possessed an even better spatial treasure that could withstand the attacks of multiple godhood experts without being destroyed. Who knew how many times more powerful it was than the bright moon divine hall? However, he swallowed the words back down as soon as they reached his mouth. This was because once they entered God King Duanmu's dwelling, whether it was the bright moon divine hall or the divine hall on him that could withstand the attacks of godhood experts several times, they would be as fragile as tofu. It did not matter which divine hall Mo Yin stayed in. What mattered was whether the person who carried the divine hall had enough strength to protect it. The two of them finished their preparations very soon. Just when they were about to make their way to the divine king's dwelling, Jianshen's face changed, and he immediately became stern. Afterwards, the faces of Mo Ling and Ando Fu changed slightly as well. The three of them looked in the same direction. To no surprise, that was the dark cloud mountains of the Liu family. Two powerful presences suddenly appeared in the direction they were looking at. They shot towards the Mo clan with lightning speed. Their presences were tremendous, causing the clouds and the surroundings to swirl. Clearly, they were gods. "It's the ancestors of the Nanyan clan and the Hua family of the Dong and province," Mo Ling said sternly. Before he had even seen them, he had already identified them from their presences. There were only so many gods in the Dong and province, and every single one of them had lived for a very long time. As a result, even though they had never interacted with each other before, they still knew each other. People from the Dong and province have actually come to the Mo clan. Has the news of the Divine King's Jade really been leaked by the Liu family and spread through the entire province? Jianshen thought as a cold light flickered through his eyes. In just a few seconds, the two gods arrived above the Mo clan. They hovered 100 meters away from the people of the Mo clan. To no surprise, the two of them were two of the three gods who watched over the Dark Cloud Mountains. The three gods had left at the same time. One of them hurried to the Ando clan, while the other two directly went to the Mo clan. Mo Ling, Ando Fu, where do you plan on going? What's wrong with your Mo clan? Why has everyone in the Mo clan left? What has happened here? A white-robed young man pretended to be surprised. He glanced around as the light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. He was an ancestor of the Nanyan clan. Even though he only seemed to be in his 20s, who knew how many tens of thousands of years he had already lived. The god of the Hua family beside him constantly looked around as well. In the end, he looked at Mo Ling and Ando Fu, and the light in his eyes flickered. This is an internal matter of our Mo clan. There's no need for other clans to interfere. We still have important matters to attend to, so we won't be keeping you company. Farewell." Mo Ling clasped his hands and said calmly, "Hold on." As soon as Mo Ling finished speaking, the god of the Hua family called out. With a flash, he arrived behind the people of the Mo clan, sandwiching them with the god of the Nanyan clan. "Huolian, what's the meaning of this?" Mo Ling's face sank as he glared at the god of the Hua family. The god of the Hua family smiled faintly. "Mo Ling, I'm just rather curious about the important matter you have to attend to. It's so important that you've split up everyone in the Mo clan. I hope Brother Mo Ling can answer my questions. This is a matter of my Mo clan. Even if your Hua family is a powerful clan in the Dong and province, you have no right to interfere with the matters of my Mo clan," Mo Ling said coldly. Hua family's heavenly deity stood with his hands behind his back. A confident smile appeared on his face as he said, "Mo Ling, if you are not willing to dispel my doubts and satisfy this old man's curiosity, then this old man will not let you leave." Thrum. As soon as the Hua clan's heavenly god finished speaking, the clear sound of a sword resonated in the sky. The temperature in the surroundings plummeted as snow began to fall from the sky. Chapter 1728. The silver-white sword moved extremely quickly. Coupled with the fact that it was close to Huolian in the first place, it arrived before the ancestor of the Hua family in a flash. Huolian's expression changed drastically. When he blocked off the path of retreat of the people of the Mo clan, he had already expected Mo Ling and Ando Fu to take action, so he had always been vigilant. However, even though he was already on guard, he still broke out in cold sweat when the streak of light appeared. The streak of sword light was just too fast, as if it had teleported. Moreover, the person who had attacked had no warning at all, so by the time he reacted, the streak of sword light had already reached his forehead. In that critical moment, Huolian bellowed out. Strands of laws of fire revolved around him, forming layers of protection. At the same time, origin energy surged out from his body, condensing into a shield before him in a single instance. However, all of Huolian's defenses were extremely weak in front of this beam of sword light. There was no way to stop it at all. The sword light broke through all of his defenses like a hot knife through butter and went straight for Huolian's forehead. Huolian's pupils shrunk to the size of the eye of the formation, reflecting the rapidly approaching sword light. Finally, under his disbelieving gaze, the sword light shot into the space between his eyebrows, directly penetrating his brain. His primordial spirit shattered, and his body and soul were destroyed. Huolian's rapidly dimming eyes were filled with unwillingness. He still had combat skills that he had yet to use, and he still hadn't used his life-saving items. Yet, he was killed in a single exchange. Huolian's body slowly fell down, falling to the ground from a height of several hundred meters. Jinshin's figure had unknowingly appeared where he had been standing, holding a flying snow sword dripping with heavenly god's blood. The interspatial ring on Huolian's finger also fell into Jinshin's hand. Huolian, Huolian, Huolian is dead. The young heavenly god from the Nanyan family stared blankly at this scene. His heart was in turmoil. Huolian's strength was on par with his. They were both in the early stage of the heavenly god realm. However, he was killed in a single exchange and did not even have the strength to fight back. Did this not mean that if the other party wanted to kill him, he would also not be able to escape? Not good, Run. The face of the god of the Nanyan clan instantly turned pale. Without any hesitation, he immediately fled as fast as he could. In the blink of an eye, he had fled to the horizon. Linear lightning release. Jianshun was emotionless. He immediately turned into a bolt of lightning and chased after the fleeing god. He caught up to the god of the Nanyan clan, who had already fled far away in a single instance. Under the god's stunned gaze, Jianshun pierced through his back and charged out through his chest. The god of the Nanyan clan grunted. His eyes widened as he stared at Jianshun, who had passed through his chest in shock. He was utterly terrified. He had lived for hundreds of thousands of years, but he had never seen such a terrifying sword art. Who are you? I'm a member of the Nanyan clan. You can't kill me. The god of the Nanyan clan said hoarsely. The god of the Nanyan clan said with a hoarse voice. On the surface, there was only a bowl-sized hole in his chest, but now that Jianshun had reached the great perfection of sword origin, his sword techniques were extremely powerful. Just a single strike was enough to make the early god of the Nanyan clan lose half of his life, losing the ability to continue fighting. "You shouldn't have come here," Jianshun said coldly. He directly pierced the forehead of the god from the Nanyan clan, wiping out his soul. The arrival of the gods from the Hua family and the Nanyan clan made Jianshun realize that the news of the Divine King's dwelling had probably already spread. The two gods had probably come to investigate the truth of the matter. Once the news of the Divine King's jade was true, the powerful clans in the Dong and province would definitely mobilize all their clans and come as quickly as possible. As a result, he could not leave the two of them behind to send a message to the Dong and province. Jianshun took the space ring from the god of the Nanyan clan and flew towards Mo Ling. In the distance, Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and the elders all stared at Jianshun in shock. They gained a deeper understanding of Jianshun's strength. Although they had all witnessed how Jianshun had crushed Lu Tian along the way, it was nowhere near as shocking as what had just happened. The god of the Hua family, Huolian, had actually been slain in a single strike. This was just far too shocking to them. Gods were equivalent to ancestors in this region. They were supreme peak experts, yet they could not even withstand a single blow from Jianshun. Even I feel envious of Jianshun's talent. Shun Jian was the calmest person in the group. It could be said that he had personally witnessed Jianshun go from the weak holy emperor to where he was today. He knew just how terrifying Jianshun's talent was. It was not just in this life. Even in his past life, Jianshun's talent was unmatched. No one could match up to him. At such a young age, he was already invincible in the Jianghu. Yen'er has actually saved such a powerful person. She was filled with mixed feelings. Back then, she had strongly opposed Mo Yan's actions of saving Jianshun and Shun Jian, but who would have thought that the two heavily injured people Mo Yan had saved would become the great benefactors of the Mo clan? The news of the Divine King's jade has probably been leaked. "We need to hurry to the dwelling as soon as possible," Jianshun said to the people from the Mo clan and Ando Fu. "There's no time to lose. Let's go right now." Mo Ling was stern as well. Afterwards, everyone immediately hurried towards the Divine King's dwelling. Before long, Jianshun's group arrived at the boundary between the Lu family, the Mo clan, and the Ando clan. This was an ancient mountain range that stretched for several tens of thousand kilometers. The origin energy here was rather thin, and a few weak magical beasts lived here. It did not seem like anything special on the surface, so very few people set foot in the mountain range. After arriving here, Mo Ling and Ando Fu instead became their guides. Jianshun and Shun Jian followed closely behind them, making their way into the depths of the mountain range. Behind them were the elders of the Mo clan and the Ando clan. In the depths of the mountain range, Mo Ling and Ando Fu stopped on an extremely ordinary-looking mountain with Jianshun and Shun Jian. Mo Ling said, "We're here. The entrance to the Divine King's dwelling is here. Let's gather the pieces of Duanmu, Divine King's jade, and open the entrance." Jianshun took out the 2 pieces of Duanmu Divine King's jade without any hesitation, while Mo Ling took out the piece from the Mo clan. The 3 pieces of Duanmu Divine King's jade hovered in the air as they radiated with a suffocating pressure of the soul. Even Jianshun, Mo Ling, and Ando Fu could not help but become stern before the pressure. The 3 pieces of Duanmu Divine King's jade fused together, forming a perfect piece of jade. It shone with an inky green light as a mysterious power radiated from the jade. It seemed to have fused with some sort of law, causing the space there to shake violently. Ripples formed in the air, blurring everyone's vision. Moreover, as the space trembled, a vast and terrifying energy ripple spread out, causing the clouds in the sky to quickly disperse. The entrance to the Divine King's dwelling was opening. "Stop!" At this moment, a bellow rang out from afar. For figures appeared in the distance, hurrying over as quickly as they could. Jianshun, Shun Jian, Mo Ling, and Ando Fu all looked over, and they became stern. "Oh no, they're from the Wainer clan," Mo Ling said sternly. Chapter 1729. Two mid-gods and two early gods, Jianshan murmured to himself. He frowned as well. Afterwards, he glanced past the Divine King's dwelling that was currently opening. Clearly, it would take some time for the dwelling to open. What powerful pressure of the soul! Even my soul trembles before the pressure. It must be the jade pendant that contains a sliver of the power of the Divine King's soul. They're opening the Divine King's dwelling. Quick, quick, quick. Hurry up. We can't let them open the Divine King's dwelling. Once they enter, the dwelling will close. At that time, even if we know where the entrance is, we won't be able to enter without the key. We have to get the Divine King's jade, no matter what. That's a complete piece of Duanmu, Divine King's jade. Once it ends up in our hands, the legacy and belongings of the Divine King will belong to our Wainer clan. Heavens, that's the legacy of a supreme Divine King. Haha, the heavens have blessed our Wainer clan. They've actually given us such a great fortune. A Divine King will definitely appear in our Wainer clan in the future. The four old men of the Wainer clan stared at the God King's dwelling that was slowly opening up. Their eyes all became red as their hearts that had remained calm, for who knows how many years began to thump uncontrollably at that moment. At that moment, excitement and other emotions filled their minds. In their eyes, the Divine King's jade was already theirs. This was because they could tell with a single glance that only Mo Ling and Ando Fu were gods, and they were early gods at that. On the other hand, their Wainer clan had two mid-gods and two early gods. The disparity in strength was so great that it could be described as a world of difference. Quick, charge over and kill them. Destroy the Mo clan and the Ando clan. Kill all of them. The Divine King's jade is ours. The eyes of the four ancestors of the Wainer clan burned with desire. Their faces had already become bright red from excessive excitement. Some of them could not help but laugh out wildly. It's all thanks to Xiao Yi that we were able to obtain the Divine King's jade. He was the one who told us that the Divine King's jade was real, which was why we were able to get here so quickly. As for the other clans in the Dong and province, we would have already entered the Divine King's dwelling by the time they investigate the authenticity of the Divine King's jade. As for the clans, our Wainer clan will have a Divine King in the future. Rebuilding the clan will be a piece of cake. The four gods of the Wainer clan were ravished with joy. It was like a pie had fallen from the sky, landing right on their heads. However, what the three of them did not know was that the over-gods of the Ando clan, Mo clan, and Lu family had already explored the Divine King's dwelling for many years. Not only were they unable to obtain the Divine King's legacy with their strength as over-gods, but they had all died in there. The four gods of the Wainer clan moved extremely quickly, entering the depths of the mountain range in the blink of an eye. They were already close to Jianshan's group. Jianshan's gaze was piercing as he radiated with surging sword chi. When the four gods of the Wainer clan charged into the depths of the mountain range, he took a step forward as well, directly charging towards them. At the same time, he said without even looking back, "Keep opening up the dwelling. I'll stop them." When the four gods saw Jianshan charge over aggressively, their faces were filled with heavy, killing intent. No matter who it was, they would kill anyone who stood in their way of obtaining the Divine King's jade, even if they were from the three most powerful clans in the Dong and province. Die if you stand in my way. Die. No one can stop me from obtaining the Divine King's jade. Where did you come from? Get out of my way. The four gods of the Wainer clan bellowed out. At that moment, they had truly lost their minds. They did not care whether Jianshan was at the origin realm, godhood, or god. They struck out with their full strength without holding back at all, attacking Jianshan as hard as they could at the same time. They had almost lost their minds before the great temptation of the Divine King's legacy. The Divine King's legacy and the Divine King's treasures were both fatally attractive to mere gods like them. This was because the Divine King was an unreachable existence in their eyes. They could only look up to him, not to mention that he was a supreme divine king who had ascended to the divine king's throne. The four of them struck out as hard as they could. Powerful origin energy and the power of laws formed huge strands of sword chi. For strands of sword chi directly shot towards Jianshun with great might. Jianshun was stern. He dared not to be careless against four gods working together, not to mention that two of them were mid-gods. Although his comprehension of laws had surpassed the four of them, reaching late god, his personal cultivation was still a little lacking. He was only equivalent to a deity. Sky-severing strike. Jianshun raised the flying snow sword high above his head. Accompanied by the fluttering snow, the flying snow sword shone with a huge streak of light that was several hundred meters long as it directly swung down. With the swing of the sword, an invisible sword domain silently formed. The surrounding space seemed to have frozen. The four gods of the Wainer clan were surprised. They all felt a very great threat from Jianshun's strike. The two early gods in particular felt the greatest threat. Boom! The streak of light landed heavily on the sword chi from the four ancestors of the Wainer clan, immediately erupting with a great boom. Terrifying ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing the surrounding mountains to collapse and the ground to crack. The entire world seemed to shake violently. The elders of the Mo clan and the Ando clan were all forced back by the powerful ripples of energy. None of them were able to stabilize themselves. Only Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and Shun Jian remained where they were. However, the slowly opening dwelling of the Divine King was not affected at all. Clearly, the ripples of energy were nowhere near enough to shake up the formations outside the dwelling. Jianshun drifted back several meters as well. He hovered in the air emotionlessly with the flying snow sword in hand. The violent streams of energy slammed into his body, causing his clothes to ruffle and his hair to dance wildly. The four gods of the Wainer clan all came to a halt before him. The two early gods in particular staggered backwards, only stabilizing themselves with great difficulty after retreating 100 meters away. Jianshun's sword technique could pose a great threat to any one of them. It could even heavily injure or even kill an early god with a single strike. However, the four of them were only able to reach a stalemate when they worked together. Chapter 1730. The four gods of the Wainer clan all stared at Jianshun in shock. Originally, they only paid attention to Mo Ling and Ando Fu. Although they had also seen Jianshun, they did not treat him with any importance. This was because they could already tell that it was impossible for Jianshun to be a god. When Jianshun charged towards the four of them in an attempt to stop them from approaching the Divine King's dwelling, the four gods of the Wainer clan still did not treat him with any importance. However, Jianshun's attempt to stop them had roused their intense killing intent, which was why the four of them struck out furiously. They wanted to eliminate everything that stood in their way of obtaining the Divine King's jade in the most decisive manner possible. Originally, they believed that Jianshun would definitely be obliterated by their full-powered attacks. However, they never thought that not only would Jianshun survive, but he would even be on par with the four of them. This shocked them all. "Sir, who are you?" One of the gods of the Wainer clan asked coldly. A vicious light flickered through his eyes. His name was Wainer Sun, one of the two mid-gods of the Wainer clan. Jianshun stood with his sword as he stared at the four gods of the Wainer clan emotionlessly. He said coldly, "Who I am is not important. Please return." "Ha ha ha, you don't have the ability to make the four of us return." Wainer Sun laughed aloud. Wei Nathan laughed aloud as extremely heavy killing intent filled his eyes. They had to obtain God King Duanmu's jade. No one could stop them today. You want to take the Divine King's jade for yourself? Dream on. Kill. The other mid-god of the Wainer clan, Wainer T, said coldly. With that, a huge two-handed sword appeared in his hand. It shone with an earthen yellow light. He swung the sword and directly swung it towards Jianshun with the power of the laws of earth. At the same time, Wainer Sun moved as well. A huge double-edged axe appeared in his hand, flickering with black light. The power of laws intertwined around the double-edged axe as well. With a bellow, The double-edged axe immediately swung towards Jianshan's head as a streak of black light. When the double-edged axe swung out, the space before him suddenly rippled. The space actually became heavy at that moment, as if it was about to solidify. Jianshan felt his body suddenly sink, as if he was carrying a towering mountain on his back. He became extremely heavy. Even the flying snow sword in his hand had become extremely heavy. His clothes were stuck to his skin now, becoming countless times heavier than steel. The laws of gravity? Jianshan thought. Chaotic force surged within him, pushing the power of chaotic force to the limit. At the same time, streaks of light rapidly gathered in the surroundings, forming a dazzling protective streak of light around Jianshan in a single instance. It cut through space and blocked the laws of gravity. The flying snow sword stabbed out with blinding golden light. Sword chi surged into the sky as the resplendent light illuminated the surroundings. It was as dazzling as the sun. Daluo sword. With a great boom, the laws of gravity that permeated the surroundings collapsed. Terrifying ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing the mountains to shake. Scattered strands of golden sword chi shot out in all directions, piercing through mountain after mountain. Wayner and Waynersen's bodies shook violently. They couldn't control themselves and flew away. Their expressions were solemn. Jianshan's body swayed as well. He retreated several meters uncontrollably as his clothes became slightly disheveled. Wayner and Waynersen's attacks were even more powerful than before. Gravity domain. Waynersen bellowed out. His soul fused with the surroundings, connecting with the laws of the world. Strands of the laws of gravity gathered around him before expanding as a streak of black light. It formed a domain that enveloped Jianshan. Waynersen immediately became like a fish in water within the domain. His battle prowess skyrocketed. Earth palm. Wayner wielded his sword in one hand as he formed a seal with the other. He pointed at the ground below, and with that, the ground below immediately withered. The mountains that were originally filled with life began to wither at a visible rate, becoming barren, yellow mountains. Strands of visible energy rapidly gathered from the ground, condensing into a hazy piece of land behind Wayner. With a rumble, it directly slammed toward Jianshan. Jianshan protected himself with a streak of light. He shone with dazzling light, and only a blurry figure could be seen. He stood within the gravity domain as he engaged in an intense battle with the two mid-gods. Wayner and Wayner Senator, his battle intense surged as his sword chi surged, causing the gravity domain to constantly distort. It shook violently as if it could shatter at any time. Wayner's son did his best to maintain the gravity domain as he used battle skills and secret techniques to engage in an intense battle with Jianshan. Wayner erupted with all his strength as well. He used various battle skills and secret techniques as well, causing the surroundings to collapse. The other two gods of the Wayner clan did not take part in the battle with Jianshan. Their eyes burned with desire as they charged towards Mo Ling and Ando Fu as quickly as they could. They wanted to take the divine, King Duanmu's jade. Mo Ling and Ando Fu's expressions changed slightly. The two of them had participated in the battle between the three clans earlier, so they were both injured. Dealing with deities was no issue, but they were definitely not the opponent of gods. Ando Fu, in particular, had been injured by Jianshan's linear lightning release, so his wounds had become even more severe. He struggled to unleash even 50% of his strength as an early god. Boom! Suddenly, there was a great rumble. Waynersen's gravity domain was finally shattered. The moment the domain shattered, Waynersen's presence rapidly weakened as well. He spurted out a mist of blood from his mouth, suffering an extremely powerful backlash. Jianshan immediately charged over. He swung the flying snow sword and two strands of powerful sword chi shot out, stopping the two early gods of the Wayner clan. However, at this moment, Jianshan sensed danger. He suddenly turned around and stabbed out without any hesitation. Behind him, a black streak of light shot out from Wayner Ti's hand with lightning speed, shooting towards Jianshan silently. Although Jianshan's flying snow sword had struck the black streak of light with great precision, it split the black streak of light in half. The two streaks of light did not slow down at all, stabbing into Jianshan's body at a speed that Jianshan was unable to dodge. Even with the protection of his sword Qi, he was unable to stop it. Jianshan immediately felt intense pain from his body as well as waves of numbness. His skin actually turned black at a visible rate. It's poison. Jianshan shivered inside. His chaotic Niden spat out strands of chaotic force as he tried his best to suppress the spread of the poison. Chapter 1731. Even if I'm poisoned, it's still enough to keep you outside, Jianshan said coldly. Jianshan said coldly. He stood tall and majestic, giving off the feeling that he could hold back 10,000 enemies all by himself. Behind, the formation around the Divine King had finally been activated. A space gate ripped open in space, and it was chaotic inside. Nothing could be seen clearly. Brother Jianshan, come in quick. Mo Ling's voice rang out from afar. The eyes of the four gods of the Wainer clan burned with desire as well. At that moment, the four of them no longer cared about Jianshan. They directly made their way around Jianshan and charged towards the Divine King's dwelling as quickly as they could. Even with the backlash, the heavily injured Wainer son ignored the worsening of his wounds. He used a secret technique and charged towards the dwelling as quickly as he could. With me here, none of you will be able to enter the dwelling, Jianshan said coldly. He suppressed the poison within him and blocked their path. A great battle erupted between the two sides once again. However, even though Jianshan was poisoned, his strength did not weaken at all. His battle prowess was still extremely great. He managed to keep the four gods of the Wainer clan busy all by himself, and under Jianshan's storm-like attacks, the four of them were unable to approach the Divine King's dwelling. Instead, they moved further and further away from the entrance. Spurt! Spurt! The two sides clashed with lightning speed. After a dozen or so exchanges, the two early gods of the Wainer clan were heavily injured by Jianshan. They constantly vomited blood. Only the two mid-gods, Wainer T and Wainer Sun, continued to clash with Jianshan in the air. With deafening booms, violent ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, tearing apart the clouds and overturning the mountains. The ancient mountain range was reduced to a mess. Behind them, the elders of the Mo clan and Lu family had all entered the Divine King's dwelling. Only Mo Ling and Ando Fu remained outside. The light in Ando Fu's eyes flickered as he watched Jianshan battle the four gods of the Wainer clan. He became hesitant. At this moment, he had clearly developed some thoughts. After all, if he entered the dwelling and closed it, Jianshan would not be able to do anything to him from outside. However, as soon as he thought about Jianshan's terrifying speed, he shivered inside. In the end, he slowly gave up on the bold idea. This was because he knew that even if he entered the Divine King's dwelling, it would be impossible for him to obtain anything. He had never even considered the Divine King's legacy because even the three overgods had failed to obtain it in the past, let alone a puny early god like him. Jianshan was already covered in blood, making him seem like a bloodied person. Clearly, he had suffered some injuries from the vicious battle against the four gods of the Wainer clan. In particular, he was about to lose control of the poison in his body. It had already spread through his body, and wherever the poison passed by, he would experience heart-wrenching pain before becoming numb. It was as if Jianshan could no longer control where he had been poisoned. What a powerful poison! Jianshan's heart sank slightly. He asked Mo Ling secretly, "Brother Mo Ling, how long will it take for the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling to close?" 3 seconds, Mo Ling replied as well. "All right, you two go in first and close the dwelling. I'll come in after 3 seconds," Jianshan replied secretly. Mo Ling hesitated slightly. He made up his mind and entered the dwelling with Ando Fu. At the same time, he stowed away the Divine King's jade. Without the support of the Divine King's jade, the entrance to the dwelling immediately began to close slowly. It had already begun to close. No, the four gods of the Wainer clan were covered in blood as well. They all cried out and were filled with reluctance. Madness filled their faces as they charged towards the entrance of the dwelling. "Piss off!" Jinshin bellowed out. He stopped the four of them firmly, preventing them from approaching the dwelling. "Don't stop me. Let me in. I want to enter the dwelling." "Sir, why must you force us? Why don't we all work together and enter the dwelling together to obtain the fortuitous encounters? Who knows? We might even be able to help each other. Let us into the dwelling, and the four of us will owe you a favor. We'll do anything for you in the future." The four gods of the Wayner clan were extremely panicked, but they could not break free from Jinshin's entanglement. They all offered their conditions. By now, 2 seconds had passed. 2/3 of the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling had already closed. Jinshin was unfazed. He stabbed out with the flying snow sword with lightning speed. At the cost of adding a few more wounds to his body, he forced the four gods of the Wayner clan who were on the brink of insanity back several thousand meters. The entrance to the Divine King's dwelling grew smaller and smaller. "No, no, no. Let me in. Don't stop me. Let me in. We already know where the entrance to the dwelling is. If you don't let us in, we'll announce it to the world. Unless you hide in the dwelling forever. That's right. If you don't let us in, we won't let you have it easy either. Once the news of the entrance to the dwelling is announced, there'll definitely be experts gathered here. Once you come out, you'll be dead for sure." The gods of the Wayner clan roared furiously. Their eyes were bloodshot, filled with great reluctance and resentment. By now, the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling had already shrunk to the size of half a person. When he heard their words, Jinshin frowned. He turned around and glanced at the dwelling that was about to close. He unleashed a strand of Daluo sword chi to force the four of them back. Then, he unleashed the linear lightning release. He turned into a bolt of lightning and charged into the dwelling the moment it was about to close. The moment he entered the dwelling, he could vaguely hear the furious roars of the four gods of the Wayner clan. The dwelling closed, and the surroundings returned to peace very soon. From the outside, it was very difficult to imagine that there was a space gate leading to the Divine King's dwelling hidden here. The four gods of the Wayner clan were filled with resentment. Their faces were completely sunken. They immediately announced the location of God King Duanmu's dwelling as quickly as they could, immediately causing a great uproar in the Dong'an province. After all, the news came from the ancestor of the Wayner clan. Without a doubt, it directly confirmed that the news of the Divine King's dwelling was true. It was not a rumor made up by some meddlesome people. At this moment, all the powerful clans in the Dong'an province could no longer sit still. All the gods swarmed out, hurrying to the dwelling as quickly as they could. At the same time, the matter rapidly spread to the other provincial cities of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. In an extremely short amount of time, it reached the 36 provinces, the royal city, and even the vast territory outside the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. It caused a huge uproar. In a short amount of time, gods had already gathered at the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling. Several dozen gods surrounded the place, and the number of gods rapidly increased. More and more of them appeared, reaching the triple digits very soon. At this moment, a terrifying presence that made all the gods present tremble crushed down from the sky. A hunchbacked old man slowly descended from the sky with a dragon-headed cane in his hand. He radiated with a presence of supremacy. Overgod, heavens, an overgod has arrived so quickly. Chapter 1732. With the arrival of the hunchbacked old man, the noisy scene immediately became quiet. At this moment, everyone's gazes were all gathered on the hunchbacked old man with the dragon-headed cane. Their gazes were all filled with reverence and fear. As for the deities and Origin Realm cultivators in the surroundings, they were forced to retreat rapidly from the tremendous presence the hunchbacked old man gave off. All of their faces had become rather pale. The great disparity in strength made it difficult for them to breathe just from the presence the hunchbacked old man gave off. They felt like a mountain was pressing down on their chests, making them feel suffocated. At that moment, the hunchbacked old man became the center of attention. He seems to be the ancestor of the greatest clan in the frigid snow province, the Yubing clan. That's right. Although I've never seen the ancestor of the Yubing clan, I've seen his portrait in the past. He is indeed the ancestor of a Yubing clan. The reason why the frigid snow province can become one of the 5 most powerful provincial cities in our divine kingdom of Pingtian is because of the existence of a Yubing clan. Because the Yubing clan possesses an over-god ancestor, their status in the divine kingdom of Pingtian is supreme. All the gods in the surroundings conversed secretly. None of them dared to speak loudly, including the 3 most powerful clans in the Dong'an province. The hunchbacked old man moved through the empty space with his dragon-headed cane. His powerful senses of the soul that belonged to an over-god swept through the region time and time again. He searched every inch of the land, not missing any corner. The old man's senses of the soul were arrogant and forceful. He did not try to hide it at all. When he expanded his senses, everyone present felt a great pressure. A few Origin Realm cultivators who had not reached godhood even felt like their souls were being ripped apart. They immediately retreated in fright, leaving the mountain range far away. An overgod is actually so powerful. Just the senses of his soul are enough to make me feel pressured. Is this the strength of an overgod? It's actually so terrifying. Overgods really do make people yearn for them. I wonder if I'll be able to become an overgod one day. Many heavenly deities were secretly shocked, and they became even more fearful of the hunchbacked old man. A while later, the hunchbacked old man withdrew his soul. His old eyes flickered with a threatening light as he stared at the space before him and sighed in amazement, as expected of the divine king's dwelling after all. It's actually hidden so well. Even old man found it difficult to notice anything even when he was standing near the entrance. The hunchbacked old man swept his gaze over the surrounding heavenly gods and spoke in an ancient voice. Does anyone know the exact location of the divine King Duanmu's cave abode? The mid-god of the Wainer clan, Wainer T, immediately flew over and bowed politely to the hunchbacked old man. After reporting his clan, he pointed at the entrance and said, "Senior, the entrance is here." I personally saw the people of the Mo clan and the Ando clan enter the dwelling from here. The hunchbacked old man arrived at the location Wayne T pointed at with a single step. He pointed the dragon-headed cane in his hand into the air. With this point, all the gods present felt an extremely terrifying energy strike the void, causing everyone's expression to change. Although the hunchbacked old man's attack was not aimed at them directly, they could feel the terror of this attack from the side. If it hit them, even if they were mid-gods, they would be annihilated. After the hunchbacked old man's attack, the void was still the same as before. Apart from the chaotic origin energy, there was no other abnormality. What a brilliant method. Old man can't find the entrance to the cave. The entire cave has been completely hidden in the void. It's impossible to detect it from the outside. The hunchbacked old man frowned. Jianshun, the people of the Mo clan, and the Ando clan gathered together in the dwelling. They stood at the entrance of the divine king's dwelling, but it had already been sealed up. They could only open it again through the divine king's jade. "Brother Jianshun, are you fine?" Mo Ling arrived before Jianshun and asked in concern. Jianshun had already been dyed red with blood. Most of his skin hidden under his blood-red robes had turned black. The poison had spread through his body even more severely. He seemed like he was about to lose control. After all, this was a poison that could kill late gods. Even over-gods would find it troublesome. If it were not for the fact that Jianshun cultivated the chaotic body, which made his body extraordinarily tough, he probably would have been reduced to a puddle of pus long ago. Jianshun shook his head. "The poison is intense, but it's not enough to kill me. I need to expel the poison from my body immediately." With that, Jianshun sat down and circulated his chaotic force as hard as he could to fend off the poison. Shun Jian and Mo Ling immediately stood guard over Jianshun. The two of them stared at Ando Fu cautiously. Clearly, Ando Fu was the person they worried about the most. Ando Fu also understood that he was not trusted, so he walked to one side and sat down in an extremely sensible manner. He continued to recover from his wounds. The Ando family's deity realm elders also gathered around Ando Fu. Ando Fu's fear for Jianshan had reached the limit. Even though his sneak attack on Jianshan would probably be extremely effective, he had already lost the courage to do so. This was because he knew that even though Jianshan was forcing out the poison, he did not lower his guard against the outside world at all. As soon as he struck, he would probably be slain mercilessly by Jianshan. Shun Jian also sat nearby and continued to recover from his wounds. However, he did not lower his guard against the outside world at all. Everyone, rest up first. The Divine King's dwelling is extremely dangerous. Remember not to move around alone. Mo Ling said to the elders of the Mo clan before standing guard by Jinshan's side. Under Jinshan's full suppression, the poison within him was brought under control very quickly. The poison that had spread across a small portion of his body began to retreat under the pressure of the chaotic force. At the same time, strands of essence that possessed some chaotic force surged out from Jinshan's essence blood, flesh, and bones. They began to surround and purge the poison. Although Jinshan's chaotic force was still weak right now and could not be regarded as true chaotic force, where its power was far inferior to true chaotic force, the level of chaotic force was still there after all. The poison that could kill late gods was naturally not its opponent. Around an hour later, Jinshan's eyes snapped open. He extended a finger towards the ground, and immediately, a ball of black poison shot out from his finger. When the poison came in contact with the tough stone floor, it sizzled. A small hole actually melted through the stone floor at a visible rate. Brother Jianshan, you forced out the poison so quickly? Mo Ling, who witnessed this scene with his own eyes, was shocked. This was a poison that could kill a late-stage heavenly god. Chapter 1733. Hearing Jian Chen's words, Mo Ling immediately praised Jianshan. His eyes were filled with admiration. Ando Fu, who sat nearby, opened his eyes as well. He glanced at Jianshan and murmured inside, "Just where does this kid come from? Even poison that can kill gods poses no threat to him. I don't believe he's an overgod. Although I can sense that his comprehension of laws has surpassed mine when I fought him, he doesn't seem to be a god. There really isn't a single strand of origin energy in God King Duanmu's dwelling. I can only replenish it with divine crystals, various pills, and heavenly resources." Jianshan sighed. Jianshan looked around and murmured. He had already guessed that the origin energy here had probably been isolated by the formations in the dwelling. Although there was no origin energy here, Jianshan could sense the radiant saint force that filled the surroundings. Radiant saint force and origin energy were two completely different types of energy. Any origin realm cultivator or even sainthood cultivator could sense origin energy, but only radiant saint masters could sense radiant saint force. The formations in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling could isolate origin energy, but they could not isolate radiant saint force. Cultivating radiant saint force here is not a bad choice, but it's clearly not a good time to do so right now. My battle prowess as a fighter is no longer enough to fear mid-gods, but my comprehension of radiant saint force is only equivalent to the Holy Emperor. Even if I can make some improvements here, I won't be able to threaten gods in a short amount of time. Aside from that, my usage of Radiant Saint Force remains at the level of a lower world. Even if my Radiant Saint Force breaks through, it won't be able to form a powerful battle prowess, Jinshan thought. He stopped thinking about Radiant Saint Force and focused on healing. As he healed, Jinshan completely relied on the advantage of the chaotic body to heal himself. He did not use Radiant Saint Force at all. Clearly, he did not want to expose his identity as a Radiant Saint Master before Mo Ling and Ando Fu. Several hours later, Jinshan had made a full recovery, while Shun Jian had only recovered a third of his wounds after ingesting Mo Ling's pills. After all, he had been healing for far too short a time. After recovering, Jinshan began to count his spoils this time. He basically possessed all the wealth of the Ando clan and Liu family, as well as the space rings of the two gods from the Hua family and Nanyan clans. All the low-grade divine crystals add up to almost 10 million, and there are several tens of thousands of mid-grade divine crystals. There are actually even more high-grade divine crystals than mid-grade divine crystals, reaching 200,000. Looks like the Liu family has mined them all recently. Jinshin's eyes were filled with joy. Even he was rather excited by the amount of divine crystals. These divine crystals should be enough for Shun Jian to break through to late deity. Now that they were trapped in the divine king's dwelling, he did not know what was going on outside, but he knew without even thinking that experts had gathered. The entire entrance to the divine king's dwelling had been surrounded. Under such a severe situation, it was obviously better for them to be as powerful as possible. There are many cultivation methods and battle skills, as well as some comprehension from gods. There are even quite a few pills. There are recovery pills and healing pills. What's this? Jinshin's eyes narrowed. With a flip of his hand, a jade bottle silently appeared in his hand. To no surprise, there was a note on the bottle that read, 100-Year God Origin Pills. Brother Jinshin, these are pills that can increase cultivation. They're even effective on gods. There are a total of 3 grades, which are 100-Year God Origin Pills, 1,000-Year God Origin Pills, and 10,000-Year God Origin Pills. They can increase your cultivation by 100 years, 1,000 years, and 10,000 years respectively. The 100-Year God Origin Pills in Brother Jinshin's possession can directly increase your cultivation by 100 years. Every single one of them is quite valuable. However, the effects of these pills are tough and extremely forceful. If you're careless, the forceful effects can even cause you to become heavily injured from a backlash. At the same time, consuming these pills will result in very severe side effects. If you consume too many of them, your foundation will become unstable, Mo Ling explained to Jinshin. Clearly, he understood the pills extremely well. A strange light flickered through Jinshin's eyes. He opened the bottle without any hesitation and discovered that there were actually 10 pills inside. The 10 pills can increase your cultivation by 1,000 years in total. It's equivalent to a second-grade violet cloud peach. However, these God Origin pills are 10,000-year-old. A 10,000-year God Origin pill is even more effective than a 9th-grade violet cloud peach, Jinshin thought. Although the 100-Year God Origin pills were not very useful to him, it would definitely be extremely beneficial to him if he could find a 10,000-Year God Origin pill. The energy within a single 10,000-Year God Origin pill was equivalent to a cultivator absorbing the origin energy of the world over 10,000 years. However, people with different aptitudes would naturally be able to absorb different amounts of source energy in 10,000 years, depending on the cultivation method they cultivated and the environment they were in. For example, the amount of source energy that a person with average aptitude could absorb after 10,000 years of bitter cultivation might only be equivalent to 100 years of hard work for a person with heaven-defying aptitude. If compared to some geniuses, this amount of time would be even shorter. After all, the amount of years that pills could increase cultivation was only a measurement. It did not mean that it could increase everyone's cultivation by 10,000 years. Brother Mo Ling, may I ask where I can find 10,000-Year God Origin pills? Jinshin asked. There's a 10,000-Year God Origin pill in the royal capital. It said that the divine king of the divine kingdom of Pingtian brought it back from another divine kingdom. It's always been auctioned off in the royal capital. It's a pity that it hasn't been sold for several tens of thousand years. Firstly, it's just too expensive, and secondly, no one dares to consume it. God Origin pills are known for their toughness, especially 10,000-Year God Origin pills. The backlash is even more terrifying. People are afraid that not only will they fail to increase their strength after consuming the pill, but they might even explode, said Mo Ling. 10,000-Year God Origin pills. Jinshin thought. He had already made up his mind. He would definitely find a way to exchange for as many 10,000-Year God Origin pills as soon as he left this place. Perhaps 10,000-Year God Origin pills were poison to other people, but they were definitely nourishment to Jinshin, who cultivated the chaotic body. Great nourishment. He was not afraid of the backlash from the pill at all. As for the destruction of his foundation, he completely ignored it. After going through the items, Jianshun gave a portion of the divine crystals to the people of the Ando clan and Mo clan. He left the rest to Shun Jian. He even gave all the healing and recovery pills to Shun Jian. In the dwelling, the pills would be more beneficial to Shun Jian than to him. As for the Ando clan, Jian Chen treated them all the same. In the God King's dwelling, every additional person was an additional source of strength. Perhaps they would be of use in the future. Jianshan was in no hurry to explore the Divine King's jade. Even 3 over-gods had died in the dwelling, so it would be difficult for him to protect himself with his current strength. As a result, he needed to increase his strength as much as possible and give Shun Jian time to break through at the same time. Jianshan took out 2 formation discs he had found in the space rings of the gods of the Nanyun clan and Hua family. He tossed one to Shun Jian and used the other for himself. He cast down a defensive formation that could block several attacks from gods without being destroyed. Afterwards, he sat down in the formation and prepared to condense a second strand of profound sword chi. Formation discs were extremely common treasures in the Saints' world. They were created by a few formation masters who would inscribe formations onto them. Regardless of whether you knew the formations or not, all you needed to do was take out the formation disc and activate the formations on it. It could be used to defend or kill enemies. Jianshan, when do you plan on entering the dwelling? Just as Jianshan was about to condense the second strand of profound sword chi, Fairy Haoyue's voice suddenly rang out. Fairy Haoyue, you know that I'm rather weak right now. If I enter the dwelling in a hurry, I'll probably end up dead. As a result, I need to increase my strength, replied Jianshan. He had entered the dwelling in such a hurry because of Fairy Haoyue. Rather than saying that he wanted to enter the dwelling, it would be more accurate to say that Fairy Haoyue wanted to enter the dwelling. Jianshan, I'll go scout the area first and see if there's any fortuitous encounter that can allow me to recover my body. Once you emerge, you only need to attack a formation in the dwelling, and I'll return immediately. I'll lead the way for you, said Fairy Haoyue. Afterwards, her illusionary soul drifted out as well, condensing into an illusionary figure before Jianshan. Fairy Haoyue, are you familiar with the Divine King's dwelling? And there are quite a few formations in the Divine King's dwelling. Even overgods can die, so, in your current state, Jianshan asked in concern. A sliver of disdain appeared on Fairy Haoyue's face. She said, I don't take the formations here seriously at all, unless this kid called Duanmu has reached the pinnacle of mastery in formations. Jianshan, don't look down on me. Although I'm only a soul and can't even defeat an Origin Realm expert in an open battle, I can come and go as I please here. Kid? Jianshan had no idea whether to laugh or cry when he heard Fairy Haoyue refer to Duanmu as the Divine King. Fairy Haoyue left by herself with that. She passed control of the Bright Moon Divine Hall to Jianshan. If it weren't for the fact that I wanted to refine a perfect body, why would I be a soul right now? There's no hope for a high-grade divine crystal mine for now. I hope the things in the dwelling don't disappoint me. Chapter 1734. Afterwards, Jianshan entered seclusion and formally began to condense the second strand of profound sword chi. Not only had his battle prowess increased after his comprehension of the laws of the sword reached the great perfection of sword origin, but his various sword techniques had become much more powerful as well. Even the power of the first strand of profound sword chi had obviously increased as well. In the past, his first strand of profound sword chi had almost killed the ancestor of the Liu family. At that time, his profound sword chi could only pose a lethal threat to early gods. If he faced mid-gods, he would probably only be able to heavily injure them at most. However, now that his comprehension of the laws of the sword had reached the great perfection of sword origin, he was confident that he could directly slay mid-gods with the first strand of profound sword chi, even without condensing the second strand of profound sword chi. If he condensed the second strand of profound sword chi and used them together, he would even be able to kill late gods in a single strike. At that time, no one below Overgod would be able to threaten him. Within when Jianshan entered seclusion, Mo Ling and Ando Fu entered seclusion as well. They comprehended the laws of the world in hopes of reaching Midgod. The two of them were both at the peak of Midgod, so the origin energy within them had reached a state of saturation. As a result, they did not need to absorb origin energy at all. They only needed to comprehend the laws they had comprehended. Once their comprehension of the laws of the world improved, they would reach Midgod. Otherwise, they would forever be stuck at the early heavenly god stage. As they entered seclusion, the elders of the Mo clan and the Ando clan all sat down as well. They all entered seclusion. They had entered this place several times already, so they understood the dangers of this place. To outsiders who did not know anything, the divine King Duanmu's dwelling was a great treasure trove, but to them who were familiar with this place, it was a graveyard. As a result, they did not dare to move about recklessly without the guidance of their ancestors. A few days later, Shunjian's injuries were completely healed. However, he didn't come out of seclusion immediately. Instead, he took out divine crystals and started cultivating. Jianshun had basically given all the divine crystals he had obtained to Shunjian. Even the high-grade divine crystals he had given to the patriarch to recharge the protective formations were returned to Shunjian. Now, Shunjian possessed a large number of divine crystals of various grades. He had more than enough to break through to late deity. More and more gods had gathered outside divine King Duanmu's dwelling after a few days. They were no longer limited to the Dong and province. Basically, over 80% of the gods in the 36 provinces of the divine kingdom of Pingtian had arrived. Many gods from other divine kingdoms were still on their way. Perhaps the divine King Duanmu's dwelling was not attractive to other divine kings, but it was extremely attractive to gods and overgods. In particular, the overgods were extremely interested in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. They all hoped that they could obtain the fortune that would allow them to reach divine King Duanmu's dwelling. The overgod from the Yubing clan of the Frigid Snow province had always lingered around the entrance of the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. He tried various methods in an attempt to enter the dwelling. Even though he had failed so far, he did not give up. "Bing Lu, you've come quite quickly." Suddenly, an old voice boomed out. As the voice passed by, the powerful sound waves caused the mountains to tremble. An old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion walked over step by step with a sword on his back. He radiated with surging sword chi, which was sharp and brutal. He did not move quickly, but with each step, he could cross a great distance. With just a few steps, he arrived before the ancestor of the Yubing clan. It's the ancestor of the Ling family of the sword-seeking province, Ling Hogong. Heavens, another overgod has come. Ling Hogong is one of the founding members of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. It's said that Ling Hogong waged war everywhere with the divine king in the past, creating the vast territory of the divine kingdom of Pingtian in the end. Afterwards, the divine king gave a region to Ling Hogong, making it one of the 36 provinces of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, the sword-seeking province. Ling Hogong spent his entire life studying the way of the sword. He was infatuated with the sword, so the name of the provincial city was changed to the sword-seeking province. The Ling family that Ling Hogong founded is the sky of the sword-seeking province. The entire provincial city is under the absolute rule of the Ling family. At the same time, there is no need to pay tribute to the royal city. It's all because Ling Hogong is one of the founding members of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. There are over a dozen overgods in our divine kingdom of Pingtian, but the number of people who can enjoy the same treatment as Ling Hogong can be counted on a single hand. The hunchbacked old man with the dragon-headed cane raised his eyes and glanced at Ling Hogong. He said steadily, "So what if he's early?" He still stopped at the entrance. The divine King Duanmu really is impressive. Even when he stands before the entrance, he can't enter. I think the divine King Duanmu's dwelling must be hidden in outer space, and the entrance is protected by a powerful formation. However, since there's a formation, it should react once it's attacked. "Let me try," said Ling Hogong. With the clear thrum of a sword, the sword on his back had already been drawn. Ling Hogong gripped the sword with one hand, and his presence changed. The huge figure of a sword seemed to condense around him, and he directly swung it forward. Ling Hogong's comprehension of the laws of the sword had surpassed sword origin and reached sword spirit. The strike caused the origin energy to become chaotic. The surroundings were filled with sharp sword chi, and even the air seemed to become sharp at that moment. The gods gathered in the surroundings all retreated. Although Ling Hogong's strike had struck outer space, the sharp sword chi that permeated the surroundings still made them shiver. However, Ling Hogong still failed to find the entrance to the divine King Duanmu's dwelling after his strike. As a matter of fact, he did not even cause the formation to pulse at all. The entrance is hidden far too well. There's nothing I can do, Ling Hogong sighed gently. If it were not for the fact that Bing Lu was here and he had already confirmed the location of the entrance, he would have even believed that this was an ordinary space. Ha ha ha, none of you have entered. It looks like we're not too late. At this moment, another great voice rang out. 3 figures rapidly approached from afar. The tremendous presences they gave off had all reached the level of overgods. Feng Buell, Guhan Shui, Eugene, you've come just in time. See if you can open the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. Ling Hogong's eyes lit up, and he immediately asked. The 3 figures were the overgods from the other 3 provinces of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. They were Feng Buell from the Feng family, Guhan Shui from the Guhan family, and Eugene from the Yu family. Chapter 1735. Feng Buell's eyes narrowed when he heard that. He circled around the entrance of the divine king's dwelling a few times and immediately showed interest. He said, "The entrance is hidden in space. That's indeed a great method." Even Old Man struggled to see through it with his eyes. However, Old Man just happens to have some understanding of the way of formations, so we can give it a try. At the same time, in a bustling city in the neighboring divine kingdom of Qingyang, a young man who seemed to be in his 20s strolled through the streets with a fan in his hand. The corner of the young man's lips was slightly curled, giving off a sense of disdain. He looked around with interest, as if everything around him was new to him. Behind the young man was a burly man who seemed to be in his 30s. He followed the young man closely. The burly man seemed extremely ordinary. He did not give off any presence at all. He seemed just like an ordinary person. The outside world is so colorful. Just walking around this street has broadened this young master's mind and opened his eyes. It's not like back in the family, where I see the same faces over and over again all day long. Looking at them makes this young master's eyes annoyed. This time, this young master risked his life to pass the trial. Those old fogies in the family finally allowed this young master to come out and gain experience. This time, this young master will definitely play around outside and turn the heavens and earth upside down. Unless those old fogies summon me, this young master will definitely not go. The young man played with the folding fan in his hand. His deep emotions became extremely excited. "Young master, you've come out to train, not to play," reminded the burly man behind him. "Uncle Qin, isn't training just playing? Isn't playing also training? Isn't it all the same?" The young man said rather unhappily. "Young master, of course it's not the same," the burly man said seriously. Before he could finish speaking, the young man with the folding fan waved his hand and said, all right. Uncle Qin, I understand, all right? Let me have a good stroll first, and then I'll go train." At this moment, a luxurious carriage with 9 strange beasts leading the way quickly made its way through the streets. The expressions of all the people on the sides of the street changed when they saw the carriage. They moved out of the way in a hurry. In particular, some of the more beautiful women on the sides of the street paled in fright. As if they had seen the most terrifying thing in the world, they all fled as quickly as they could. At this moment, a golden rope extended out of the carriage. It was divided into over a dozen segments, wrapping around the women in a single moment. As the women cried out, they were quickly pulled into the carriage. Without any exception, the women who had been bound were the most beautiful people there. The young master of the Mo family has come out to look for toys again. Sigh, these women sure are unlucky to have ended up in the young master's hands. Who knows how many women the young master of the Mo family has defiled in the past few years. All the women he's taken away have never appeared in the outside world again. I wonder what happened to them. It's all because the Mo family reigns supreme in the Blue River province. No one dares to offend the Mo family in the Lana province. After all, the Mo family is one of the 5 most powerful provinces in the divine kingdom of Qingyang. On both sides of the street, many passers-by were discussing in low voices, mixed with voices of pity for those women. The young master of the Mo family had openly abducted people on the streets, but no one stood forward. If they really did that, only death would await them. Let go of my sister. A child who looked no more than 10 years old ran towards the carriage. His childish face was filled with panic. You're looking to die. A cold voice rang out from the carriage. The person was nowhere to be seen, but a whip lashed out from the carriage, striking the child like he was a child. The child had only just embarked on the path of cultivation. He was not even an Earth Saint Master, so he would definitely die if he was struck by the whip. The young man's eyes narrowed when he saw this. With a clap, he closed his fan and directly pointed it at the whip from afar. Immediately, a powerful strand of origin energy shot out, knocking the whip aside. How dare you? Who dares to obstruct me? Are you tired of living? An arrogant voice rang out from the carriage. The young man with the fan in his hand walked out unhurriedly under the watchful eyes of the crowd. He flapped the fan in his hand and said with a cynical smile on his face, "You dare to call yourself a young master in front of this young master? You're quite bold. The one who is tired of living should be you. How dare you talk back to me? Men, kill him." The young master of the Mo family's voice rang out from the carriage. The guards who were guarding around the carriage immediately swarmed up and rushed toward the young man who was holding a folding fan with a murderous look on their faces. The corner of the young man's lips curled into a sliver of disdain. He said, "How dare you disrespect me? How dare you kill a good girl in public? How dare you kill her? How dare you attack a young child? How dare you kill her?" The young man spread his fingers and unfurled the fan in his hand. He directly swung it at the carriage. Whoosh! With a wave of the fan, flames immediately rose up. The waves of fire surged into the sky as the fan surged with flames, turning into a fierce fire dragon that enveloped the guards and the carriage that had charged over. The violent flames had come quickly and disappeared just as quickly. They had vanished in the blink of an eye. They had only appeared for a split second, but all the guards in the carriage had vanished in that split second. Only a few ashes remained on the ground. The entire street instantly became absolutely silent. Everyone's expression became sluggish. What kind of flame was this? They had actually burned the young master of the Mo family and the carriage to ashes in a single instance, and they did not cause any damage to the surrounding buildings or people at all. Everyone's gazes towards the young man changed. Killing the young master of the Mo family in the territory controlled by the Mo family was definitely outrageous. After all, the Mo family was one of the 5 most powerful clans in the divine kingdom of Qingyang. They possessed an overgod and controlled an entire province. "Thank you, benefactor. Thank you, benefactor." The women who were saved thanked the young man one after another. Then, they quickly left while still in a state of shock, disappearing into the crowd. Looks like the Mo family isn't anything good. Uncle Qin, let's go. Let's go destroy the Mo family. The young man stowed his fan away and made his way off into the distance without caring at all. "Young master, you've already destroyed 4 clans along the way. The strong prey on the weak. This is very common in the Saints world. If you care about everything, you'll have to destroy quite a few clans on the cloud plane," the burly man beside him said helplessly. "If that's the case, let's just ignore the Mo family for now. Uncle Qin, I heard that a divine king's dwelling has appeared in the Dong, and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. It seems to be called Duanmu or something. Let's go take a look." The young man immediately became interested again. "Duanmu," the burly man murmured. The light in his eyes flickered, and he nodded. "Let's go take a look." Chapter 1736. Soon after the young man and the burly man called Uncle Qin left, a powerful presence rapidly appeared. Over a dozen black-clothed men hovered in the air. They were emotionless, and their gazes were cold. Even the weakest of them was at reciprocity, while the person at the front had clearly become a deity from the presence and pressure he gave off. Who killed the young master of our MO family? Chase him down, the leading human god said coldly. After learning the direction the young man with a fan had left in from the passers-by, he chased after him with lightning speed. At the same time, a powerful presence surged into the sky from the ancestral estate of the MO family. It shot out like an arrow. The tremendous pressure it gave off had actually reached the level of a god. As the god charged out, a thunderous voice boomed in the air. Which fellow has come to my MO family? How dare you look down on our MO family like this? His voice was filled with a monstrous fury. His entire body seemed to have transformed into a sharp sword as he chased after the young man with a folding fan. Heavens, a god from the MO family has appeared. To be able to draw out a god from the MO family, the senior who killed the young master of the MO family is probably a god as well. Gods are already lofty existences. It's extremely difficult to even see them normally. I never thought I would actually be standing beside a god earlier. A heated discussion rang out on the bustling streets. Many people mourned for the young man inside. The MO family could do whatever they wanted in the provincial city. Even though the young man was a god, no one believed he could escape from the MO family. However, very few people discovered that the god from the MO family never returned. Moreover, the god who had pursued the young man never appeared in the MO family again. More and more godhood experts gathered at the entrance to the Divine King's ancestral estate in the Dong, and province of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. Not only had close to 80% of the gods gathered there, but the number of overgods rapidly increased as well. Aside from the 5 overgods from the 5 provincial cities, there were even overgods from the royal capital of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian who had come. By now, there were already more than 10 sovereigns gathered here. All the overgods gathered at the entrance, trying everything they could to open the dwelling. However, no matter how they tried, no matter how they thought of all sorts of strange methods, they were unable to find a way in. Even Master God Feng Buell, who was well-versed in formation doctrine, was at his wit's end. That seems to be the old ancestor of the MO family from the Divine Kingdom of Qingyang. Even someone from the Divine Kingdom of Qingyang is here. He seems to be the old ancestor of the Divine Kingdom of Qingyang's Sun Transformation sect. The old ancestor of the windless sect of the Divine Kingdom of Qingyang has also arrived. The chief god of the 9 Stars Divine Nation is here as well. Look, that's someone from the Kaiyuan Divine Nation. As time went on, the number of overgods who had arrived rapidly increased. Every single one of them was an important figure of a divine kingdom, a figure that reigned over an entire region. They were all elusive figures. Today, they had all gathered in the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian after receiving news of the Divine King Duanmu's dwelling. The 4 divine kingdoms of Pingtian, Divine Kingdom of Qingyang, Divine Kingdom of 9 Stars, and Divine Kingdom of Kaiyuan did not differ by much in strength. Basically, every single divine kingdom possessed over a dozen overgods. Even though not all of them had arrived, there were still over 30 overgods gathered here. As for celestial deity realms, there were even more. This is our Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. The Divine King Duanmu's dwelling belongs to our Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. So please leave if you are not from our Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. The overgods of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian were naturally displeased that so many overgods from other divine kingdoms had come. Immediately, an overgod from the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian spoke out in a righteous manner. Hee, it's true that this is your Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, but there's no rule that says people from other divine kingdoms can't enter. Moreover, the Divine King Duanmu's dwelling doesn't belong to your Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. According to my knowledge, the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian had not even been founded when the Divine King Duanmu was renowned. A black-robed old man sneered. He gave off a cold presence. He was the ancestor of the Mo family from the Divine Kingdom of Qingyang. That's right. The Divine King Duanmu's dwelling doesn't belong to your Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. As for the Divine King himself, he's not a part of your Divine Kingdom of Pingtian either. If your divine kingdom of Pingtian wants to take the divine King Duanmu's dwelling for yourself, that's just wishful thinking, another overgod added. He came from the divine kingdom of 9 stars. People of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, you better consider this carefully. If you want to take the divine King Duanmu's dwelling for yourself, you'll be making an enemy out of all of us. Can you really handle that? The person who spoke was a beautiful woman in a white dress. She came from the divine kingdom of Kaiyuan. As soon as the overgod from the divine kingdom of Pingtian spoke up, the overgods from the divine kingdom of Qingyang, the divine kingdom of 9 stars, and the divine kingdom of Kaiyuan firmly rebuked him. His expression immediately became ugly. They did not wish for the overgods from the other divine kingdoms to enter the divine King Duanmu's dwelling, because the more people there were, the more intense the competition would be. The chances of obtaining any fortuitous encounters would naturally decrease. However, there was nothing they could do about this. The divine kingdom of Pingtian was indeed unable to fend off 3 divine kingdoms that were on par with them. Cut the crap. If we can't even get through the entrance, it'll be useless no matter how many overgods come. Let's think of a way to get in, Feng Buell said with a frown. It looks like the entrance to the divine King Duanmu's dwelling is hidden in outer space. Everyone, why don't we work together and force out the formation hidden in outer space first, said the ancestor of the Mo family from the divine kingdom of Qingyang. Everyone immediately agreed with the ancestor of the Mo family suggestion. Afterwards, all the overgods began to move. They all used their abilities in an attempt to force out the entrance to the dwelling hidden in outer space. Immediately, violent booms rang out incessantly. Terrifying energy permeated the surroundings, causing the world to collapse and the sun and moon to dim. The primitive mountain range that stretched for several tens of thousands of kilometers was flattened in an instant. The ripples of energy from the attacks of overgods were not something that gods could endure. In particular, when so many overgods struck out together, it was even more magnificent. It forced the gods in the surroundings to retreat. God damn it, the damned Mo clan and Ando clan. The gods from the Wainer clan watched this from afar with bloodshot eyes. They were so jealous that they almost burst into flames. The divine King Duanmu's dwelling was so well hidden and so difficult to enter. It had blocked out so many overgods. If they were in the dwelling, they would be able to harvest Duanmu, divine, King Duanmu's belongings comfortably and happily. Every time they thought of this, the gods of the Wainer clan would be filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred, their eyes turning red. Chapter 1737. Over 30 overgods struck out together, so the ripples of energy had already turned into terrifying storms. Only other overgods could remain in the storms. As for the gods, they had already retreated to several hundred kilometers away. Even so, there were still many gods who did their best to resist, which was why they were able to remain there. However, there were 2 exceptions in outer space. One of them was a handsome young man in white robes. He held a fan in his hand as he smiled frivolously. He stared at the overgods who were trying to get through the formations with interest. The young man was clearly only a god, but he was as steady as a mountain in the storms of energy from over 30 overgods. The powerful ripples of energy did not even manage to raise a single strand of his hair. At a closer glance, it was not difficult to discover that the ripples of energy that made all the gods retreat were unable to get within 3 meters of the young man at all. Behind the young man stood a burly man with a strong back and a bare waist. The burly man appeared extremely ordinary, just like an ordinary person. However, he was able to stand in the air. The energy ripples that raged in the sky were unable to reach a radius of 10 feet around the burly man. As a result, only the area where the young man with the folding fan and the large man were in was calm. The rest of the area was like a surging ocean. Naturally, all the overgods gathered there saw the 2 of them. They directly glanced past the young man and landed on the burly man behind him. Their eyes all narrowed. This was because they were unable to see through the burly man's strength. In their eyes, the burly man seemed like an ordinary person who did not cultivate at all. However, They did not underestimate the burly man. Instead, they became fearful. All of them paid close attention to the two of them. Although they knew that the burly man had used a secret technique to hide his strength, the fact that he could stand there meant that his strength was extraordinary. However, the young man's next action caused the faces of all the overgods to darken slightly. The young man with the fan had actually set up a table several thousand meters in the air. The table was filled with various delicacies, and the young man sat before it as he watched them get through the entrance to God King Duanmu's dwelling in great interest. He ate and drank to his heart's content. He seemed to be extremely satisfied. The burly man quietly stood behind the young man as if he was a guard. "Uncle Chin, how long do you think they'll take to open the entrance?" The young man asked with interest as he smiled faintly. Duanmu has some accomplishments in the laws of space. He has hidden the entrance to the dwelling in space, so it's indeed difficult to discover. However, they already know the exact location of the entrance. As for how long it'll take, that's difficult to say. If they just force the entrance out of space, it'll be much simpler. All they need to do is destroy the stability of the space here, and the entrance will appear naturally, said the burly man who was referred to as Uncle Chin. "Uncle Chin, why don't we make a bet? Let's bet on how long it'll take them to force the entrance out of space. I bet that they won't be able to do it within 3 years," the young man said to the burly man as he ate the delicacies slowly. "No," the burly man declined without hesitation. "How boring." The young man shook his head. He immediately lost interest in the bet. Although the conversation between the young man and the burly man did not spread, the overgods could still roughly guess what they were talking about from the movement of their lips. It made all of their faces become rather sunken. Who were the two of them? I don't know. I've never seen them before. As a matter of fact, I've never even heard of them before. However, they're probably overgods since they can withstand the energy so easily. The young man is only a mid-god, and he hasn't even used his full strength. The energy didn't come from him. It looks like it came from the person behind him. A few overgods communicated with each other secretly. Without a doubt, the young man's scornful actions had angered all the overgods present. It was fine if he just wanted to watch from the side. He was not the only one who wanted to watch from the side. There were even more gods further away. But now that he had brought out a table full of delicacies, the situation had completely changed. This was no longer an attitude of watching and learning. They were just watching a show. Although they were unhappy, the overgods dared not go up to cause trouble. They could already tell that the burly man whose strength they could not tell was only a follower or guard. Even his follower and guard were so powerful, so it was extremely likely that he was an overgod. They could not afford to offend an organization like that. Even if he was not an overgod and was only a late god, they could not afford to offend someone who could make a late god act as a follower or guard. Perhaps because he sensed that more and more overgods were paying attention to him. The young man opened his hand, and the fan in his hand immediately unfurled. He fanned himself gently in a leisurely manner as he smiled. "There's no need to look at me. I've come out to eat, drink, and play. I won't get in your way. Continue." Faced with so many overgods, the young man remained composed even though he was only a god. However, his actions only confirmed the guesses of the overgods. "Ignore him. Let's continue," Overgod said with a sunken face. Everyone could tell that the young man had quite the background. Over 30 overgods continued to force their way out of the dwelling. Rumbles constantly rang out. Time passed in a hurry. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had already passed. For formation discs shone with dazzling light within the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. They held up a region of space, which was extremely eye-catching in the dwelling. The region covered by the formations engraved on the formation discs was where Shun Jian, Jian Shun, and Mo Ling and Ando Fu cultivated. Unknowingly, they had already spent 5 years there. However, at this moment, a powerful sword chi suddenly appeared from the formation disc that Jianshan resided in. The formation disc that could withstand the attacks of gods could not even last for a few seconds before the sword chi. It shattered, and the entire formation disc shattered, revealing Jianshan. A finger-sized, exquisite sword Qi hovered above Jinshan's head. It shone with a threatening light, and just the sword intent it gave off shattered the formation disc. As the sword intent expanded, even the formation that protected Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and Shun Jian began to tremble violently. The formation collapsed at a visible rate, startling Shun Jian, Mo Ling, and Ando Fu back to their senses. In the next moment, the sharp sword intent vanished. The tiny sword Qi that hovered above Jinshan's head vanished, returning to Jinshan's soul. Jinshan slowly opened his eyes as he smiled. The second strand of profound sword Qi had finally been condensed. Chapter 1738. What powerful sword intent. It's actually enough to make me feel fear. Brother Jinshan, you've broken through again? Mo Ling arrived before Jinshan and said in shock. Wasn't Jinshan's strength increasing just a little too quickly? It had only been a while, yet he had already increased again. Ando Fu stowed his formation disc away and stood up as well. He also stared at Jinshan in shock. Shun Jian stopped cultivating as well. He opened his eyes and looked at Jinshan. Jinshan shook his head when he heard what Mo Ling had said. I've only increased my comprehension of a sword technique slightly. My actual strength hasn't broken through. Afterwards, Jinshan looked at Shun Jian and discovered that Shun Jian had actually become a god. Jinshan was not surprised at all that Shun Jian had become a god so quickly. After all, Shun Jian's comprehension of the laws of the world had already reached mid-god. All he lacked was his own cultivation. He had basically left all his divine crystals and various pills to Shun Jian when he entered seclusion. With Shun Jian's talent, becoming a god within 5 years would not be a problem at all. However, Shun Jian had used up all his divine crystals after breaking through. He only left behind an insignificant portion to recover his origin energy. After all, it was impossible to absorb the origin energy of the world to recover in the dwelling. Once the origin energy was depleted, it could only be recovered through divine crystals, pills, and heavenly resources. However, Shiyu and the elders of the Mo clan struggled to remain calm when they saw how Shun Jian had become a god so quickly. They had personally witnessed Shun Jian become a deity from reciprocity, yet now, in just a few years, Shun Jian had become a god like a rocket. All of them were astounded by his speed. If they had not personally witnessed this, they would never have believed that someone could cultivate so quickly no matter what. In particular, Shiyu felt extremely mixed feelings. Originally, the Mo clan believed her to be a monstrous talent, but compared to Shun Jian, she discovered that she was nothing. Since everyone is prepared, let's go check out the dwelling, said Jinshan. Afterwards, he glanced around and found a rather obvious formation. He directly sent a strand of sword Qi into the formation with a flying snow sword, immediately producing a heavy boom. It was particularly ear-piercing in the silent dwelling of the Divine King. Jinshan stowed the flying snow sword away after sending out the strand of sword Qi. He stood where he was and waited. Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and the other elders did not act recklessly when they saw how Jinshan did not leave. They basically treated Jinshan as their leader now. Before long, the white-clothed, illusionary fairy Haoyue flew out from the depths of the dwelling. She arrived before Jinshan in a while. Fairy Haoyue, your soul has become even more powerful. Congratulations, said Jinshan. Fairy Haoyue's soul was now equivalent to a deity. It had to be mentioned that 5 years ago, her soul was only at the origin realm. Fairy Haoyue said emotionlessly, I've basically understood the situation of this dwelling. Duanmu cultivates in the very depths of the dwelling, and the formations there are the most powerful as well. I can't enter there. There are 3 other regions that are probably where Duanmu's 3 disciples cultivate. The formations there are slightly weaker. Moreover, there are hidden formations in the depths of the dwelling. Some of them are killing formations that can even kill overgods. Even the Divine King will struggle to escape from them, so you have to be careful when you move through the dwelling. If you're careless, you'll be doomed. Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and the others were all surprised by Fairy Haoyue's appearance. They could tell with a single glance just how weak Fairy Haoyue was. She was actually able to wander around the Divine King's dwelling with such a weak soul and obtain so much information. She had basically explored the entire dwelling, so they could not help but hold Fairy Haoyue in high esteem. Fairy Haoyue, may I ask if you've seen anyone else in the dwelling? Mo Ling asked nervously. He did not recognize Fairy Haoyue, but he did the same when he heard Jianshan call her that. Fairy Haoyue glanced at Mo Ling and said, "You want to ask about the ancestors of your 3 clans, right? I did see them, but it's all thanks to them breaking through so many formations that I was able to venture so far. Are the ancestors still alive?" Mo Ling asked excitedly. Ando Fu became interested as well. He stared at Fairy Haoyue without blinking as his eyes were filled with eagerness as well. "They're dead. Their corpses are all in the depths of the dwelling. They died to a killing formation," Fairy Haoyue said. Mo Ling and Ando Fu immediately became sorrowful when they heard that. Although they had already guessed that this would be the case, they still could not help but feel sad when their guesses were confirmed. 2 of the dwellings of the Divine King's 3 disciples have been broken through and their contents have been swept clean. The last one is still intact. I'll take you there," Fairy Haoyue said to Jianshan and Shunjian before leading them to the depths of the Divine King's dwelling. Very soon, Jianshan and the others followed behind Fairy Haoyue. They arrived where the 3rd disciple of the Divine King cultivated without any obstructions. Along the way, Jianshan discovered a large number of damaged formations. Every single one of them possessed the presence of time. Clearly, they had been left behind by the ancestors of Mo Ling and the others. It was exactly because the 3 overgods had destroyed many of the formations that Jianshan and the others were able to travel so smoothly. They basically faced no obstacles at all. According to the ancestor, this is where God King Duanmu's disciple cultivates. This disciple has already become an overgod, and he has quite the mastery over formations as well. In the past, the ancestor tried to get through this formation as well, but due to how powerful it was, it took the ancestor a tremendous amount of effort to get through it. The ancestor was unwilling to waste so much effort, so he never paid any attention to this place because the items of overgods were not enough to attract the ancestor's attention. As for the other 2 dwellings, according to the ancestor's guesses, this should have been where the Divine King's grand disciples cultivated. As the 2 grand disciples were only gods, the formations they cast down were not powerful. As a result, the ancestors destroyed the other 2 cultivation grounds effortlessly, and all the items inside were obtained by our 3 clans, Mo Ling explained as he stood before the dwelling. Although they're God King Duanmu's grand disciples, they're still much more powerful than me and Mo Ling. There are traces of their cultivation in the dwelling of God King Duanmu's grand disciples, as well as marks of their comprehension of laws. Comprehending these marks is beneficial to early gods like me and Mo Ling. It's even more beneficial to deities. Of course, it would depend on your ability to comprehend as well. If your ability to comprehend is insufficient, you won't be able to benefit at all, Anfu added. Ando Fu added. He looked at the godhood elders of the Ando clan behind him. He really wanted them to go to where God King Duanmu's grand disciple cultivated. It's best if you get through this formation first. This formation was cast down by an overgod, so it's extremely intricate. Even early overgods won't be able to get through it if they don't understand it. It's as tough as steel to you. However, I can see the weakest point of the formation. If all of you work together and I assist you, you might be able to get through it, said Fairy Haoyue. Chapter 1739. The weak point of the formation is not fixed. Instead, it can change at any time as the formation operates. All of you, prepare yourselves and listen to my command, said Fairy Haoyue. Jianshan, Shunjian, Ando Fu, and Mo Ling, and the elders all prepared themselves. They all stood in their respective positions, secretly accumulating power so that they could unleash their most powerful attack at any time. Jianshan and Shunjian also radiated with powerful sword intent. As the 2 of them stood there, They seemed to have turned into two divine swords with astonishing might. The space was filled with a powerful sword intent that infected the air, causing it to become sharp. The two of them understood that they were facing a formation cast down by an overgod. The formation was so powerful that even regular overgods would struggle to get through it, let alone people like them who were only gods. As a result, they would use their full strength this time. 3 meters to the left. Now, do it, Fairy Haoyue called out coldly. With that, everyone struck out at the same time. They all launched their most powerful attacks towards the location Fairy Haoyue had indicated. 2 streaks of light shone extremely brightly among the attacks. They illuminated the entire dwelling, completely drowning out Mo Ling and Ando Fu's light. Boom! The attacks from Jianshun, Shun Jian, Ando Fu, Mo Ling, and the elders basically struck the location Fairy Haoyue had indicated at the same time. With a great boom, powerful ripples of energy blasted back, pushing the elders back. They struggled to remain where they were before such ferocious ripples of energy. The formation immediately began to flicker. Jianshun, Shun Jian, and the others all stared at the formation, but to their disappointment, the formation only trembled slightly before stabilizing after enduring their powerful attacks. Your attacks are too weak. If that's all you have, let alone entering Duanmu's cultivation grounds, you won't even be able to obtain what Duanmu's disciple has left behind, Fairy Haoyue said with a frown. Use your battle skills again. Deities fall into formation, said Jianshun. Afterwards, the deities of the Mo clan and Ando clan all fell into formation. Mo Ling and Ando Fu were prepared to use their battle skills as well. 3 feet to the left. Do it. Fairy Haoyue's voice rang out. Daluo sword, a will that splits the heavens, sword shakes, stars shatter. Jianshun and Shun Jian immediately struck out. They used powerful sword techniques, while Mo Ling and Ando Fu used their truth-tier battle skills at the same time. As for the deities of the 2 clans, they used their most powerful attacks through the formation. Boom! With a great boom, the attacks this time were clearly much more powerful than before. The formation immediately began to tremble as it flickered rapidly. However, the formation remained unscathed after enduring everyone's attacks. Fairy Haoyue shook her head gently and sighed gently. This is only equivalent to an attack from a peak god. It's still very far away from an overgod. The main reason why the attacks could reach the level of a peak god was because of Jianshun and Shun Jian. As for Mo Ling and Ando Fu, they were only early gods. Even if they used truth-tier battle skills, they would only reach the level of a mid-god at most. As for the deities, even if they combined their powers through the formation, the effects would still be insignificant. It was basically negligible. It was only better than nothing. Again, Jianshun's eyes turned cold as he said coldly. With that, a terrifying sword intent that made everyone present shiver permeated the surroundings. A finger-sized strand of sword chi hovered above Jianshun's head. Mo Ling and Ando Fu's eyes narrowed as shock flooded their faces. As soon as the strand of sword chi appeared, they felt chills run down their bodies, as if they had fallen into an icy cavern of death. Even their hands and feet shivered. Terrifying. It was just too terrifying. This was what Mo Ling and Ando Fu felt from the sword chi. It caused them to feel a sliver of fear uncontrollably. Shun Jian's eyes narrowed as well. He stared at the tiny sword chi above Jianshun's head. This was the second time he had seen Jianshun use the sword chi, but it was much more powerful than the first time. Not to mention early heavenly gods. Even mid-heavenly gods would have to die before this sword chi. Even late heavenly gods would be killed. This was because the sword chi was just far too powerful. Fairy Haoyue could not help but glance at Jianshun again. A sliver of eagerness appeared in her eyes, right at the center. Attack! Everyone attacked, as hard as they could once again. They used their most powerful battle skills and sword techniques, while the profound sword chi above Jianshun's head shot out as a white streak of light. Boom! This time, The formation was finally shaken up. It began to shake violently as it flickered and dimmed. However, it was still quite far from shattering. Jinshin's eyes turned cold when he saw this. With a thought, another tiny strand of sword chi hovered above his head, radiating with a surging presence. The second strand of sword chi was even more powerful than the first. Swish! Before the formation could stabilize, the second strand of sword chi turned into a streak of light, striking the trembling formation with lightning-like speed. With a boom, the formation that even regular overgods would struggle to smash through finally cracked before Jinshin's two strands of profound sword chi. It's shattered. It's broken. It's broken. The formation's broken. Mo Ling and Ando Fu beamed. They were both extremely excited. The two of them had coveted this dwelling for a very long time. Sung Jin had come here several times with their ancestor. With their ancestor's strength as an overgod, it would not be difficult for him to get through the formations. He would just need to expend a great deal of effort. However, it was exactly because their ancestor was unwilling to waste his energy on a dwelling that was not attractive to them that he did not smash through the formation. He placed all of his efforts on the divine King Duanmu's legacy, so he could only allow the dwelling to lie there quietly until today. Behind them, the deities of the Mo clan and the Ando clan became excited as well. However, Jianshun, the person who had contributed the most to smashing through the formation, was pale and haggard. He seemed weak. Using the profound sword chi was just far too taxing on him. He could still withstand a single strand of profound sword chi with his way of the sword at the great perfection of sword origin. But using two strands of profound sword chi in succession would exhaust all the power of his soul. Chapter 1740. Even though Mo Ling and Ando Fu were extremely excited and filled with desire, they were not bold enough to set foot in the dwelling. They all looked at Jinshin. Jinshin was afraid to enter, and the two of them were afraid to enter as well. Now that Jinshin's strength had gradually been exposed, not only did Ando Fu fear him to the extreme, but even Mo Ling was no longer as casual when he spoke with Jinshin. Jinshin sucked in a deep breath and endured the dizziness that came from the ruckus. He carefully and cautiously entered the dwelling. The overgod's dwelling was spacious and simple. There was a huge, circular square in the center, and there were a few secret rooms scattered around the square. They were all engraved with words like alchemy room, pill room, seclusion room, sword comprehension building, scrolls pavilion, storage room, and so on. Jinshin and Shunjian both looked at the sword comprehension building, while Mo Ling and Ando Fu looked between the pill room and scrolls pavilion. As for Fairy Hao Yue, she only glanced around casually before losing interest. She did not believe that there was anything here that could help her reconstruct her body. Shunjian looked away from the sword comprehension building very quickly and looked at the pill room. He said to Jinshin, "Let's go take a look at the pill room first." "All right." Jinshin nodded and made his way to the pill room with Shunjian. Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and the others followed closely behind. They did not act on their own. Although there were formations in the pill room as well, it was nowhere near as powerful as the one at the entrance. It was only at the god level, so it was only a basic defense. Obviously, it was unable to stop Jinshin and the others, so they broke through it easily. Entering the alchemy room, a rich pill fragrance immediately assailed his nostrils. He saw that this small alchemy room was filled with hundreds of jade bottles of various sizes. They were neatly arranged together, exquisite and beautiful. Every jade bottle was marked with the name of the pill inside. The Constitution Nurturing Yuan Pill. This is a relatively common pill. Its greatest effect is to strengthen one's foundation and nurture one's yuan qi. It is quite effective for those with an unstable foundation. In addition, it will also have some effect on those who have exhausted their yuan qi. Of course, if the situation is too serious, this Constitution Nurturing Yuan Pill will be useless. You will need to use a higher grade pill. The Spirit Awakening Pill is a pill that can stabilize the soul. It has a good effect on people with unstable souls. In addition, during the process of cultivation, there are often people who can't keep their minds and go mad. After taking the Spirit Awakening pill, it can reduce the risk of going mad. Mo Ling and Ando Fu had lived for a very long time, so they obviously had a lot of knowledge. They recognized most of the pills on display, and they both began to comment on them. Was this the eternal pill? There's actually an eternal pill here. Suddenly, Mo Ling's face changed. He immediately became overjoyed. He immediately grabbed a jade bottle and studied it carefully. He said excitedly, "This eternal pill is a 5th grade truth tier pill. Every single one of them is quite expensive. The cheapest is 1,000,000 low-grade divine crystals, and sometimes even more. Moreover, they can only be bought in the royal capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. They don't exist in the 36 provinces." Ando Fu made his way over as well and said excitedly, "It really is a life pill. The life pill is specially used to recover origin energy. Although every single pill is priceless, it's worth it because the effects of the life pill are extremely great. Even if a late god's origin energy has been completely depleted, a single pill will allow them to replenish all their origin energy within 10 seconds. At certain crucial moments, the eternal pill can save their lives." What? A late god's origin energy can be completely replenished in 10 seconds? Jianshun was surprised when he heard about the effects of the pill. He immediately made his way over. Mo Ling immediately passed the bottle of eternal pills to Jianshun. Jianshun did not hold back at all. He accepted the bottle and opened it. 10 pure white, round pills lay inside quietly. Every single one of them was only the size of a finger. Jianshun closed the bottle and looked through the shelves again. He discovered that there were actually 6 bottles of eternal pills in the room. Each bottle contained 10 pills, so there were 60 in total. In the end, after some discussion, it was decided that Jianshun and Shunjian would take 2 bottles each, while Mo Ling and Ando Fu would take 1 each. Originally, Mo Ling and Ando Fu refused to accept the pills. They would be satisfied with just 1 or 2. After all, Jianshun had contributed the most to them being able to enter this place. As a matter of fact, Mo Ling and Ando Fu even suspected that Jianshun would be able to get through the formation all by himself, even without their assistance. However, under Jianshun's insistence, they ended up giving Mo Ling and Ando Fu a bottle each. Ando Fu's emotions became extremely mixed as he held the bottle of eternal pills. Originally, he only thought he was Jianshun's captive. Even if he entered the Divine King's dwelling, he would only be a tool to clear the way. No matter what he found, he would not get a share of it. However, he had never thought that Jianshun would treat him the same as Mo Ling. He was not discriminated against at all, giving him a bottle of such precious eternal pills without any hesitation at all. The pill of resurrection is a healing pill. It's already at the 7th grade of the truth tier. Heavens, a pill like this can be sold for 1.5 million low-grade divine crystals in the royal capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, yet there are actually 2 bottles here. The Fire Cloud pill is a pill that can temporarily increase one's strength. It can ignore the restrictions of the laws of the world and forcefully increase one's cultivation by a minor level. However, it will result in an extremely powerful backlash, which will greatly weaken one's vitality. 1,000-year God origin pills. There are 10 in a bottle, yet there are actually 4 bottles here. Heavens, these are 10,000-year God origin pills. These pills are worth far more than the eternal pills. A single 10,000-year God origin pill in the royal capital costs 10 million low-grade divine crystals. Ando Fu's shocked voice rang out in Jianshun's head. Jianshun rejoiced when he heard about the 10,000-year God origin pills. He arrived before Ando Fu in a flash and snatched the bottle from his hand. He opened the bottle eagerly and saw that there were also 10 pills inside. "Help me find how many bottles of 10,000-year God origin pills there are," Jianshun said in a hurry. 10,000-year God origin pills were exactly what he needed. "Brother Jianshun, there's 1 more bottle here. It's also the last bottle. There are only 2 bottles in total in this room." Mo Ling passed a jade bottle to Jianshun. To no surprise, it was filled with 10,000-year God origin pills. 2 bottles of 10,000-year God origin pills. That's a total of 20 pills. Jianshun held the 2 bottles. He ignored the dizziness in his soul as he became extremely excited. 20,000-year God origin pills were equivalent to 200,000 years of cultivation. They could strengthen his chaotic Niden by quite a lot. Even though the 20,000-year God origin pills might not be enough for him to reach the 10th layer of the chaotic body, they could take a step closer. It might even be enough for his chaotic Niden to reach the 9th layer. At that time, he would only need to consume some heavenly resources or absorb divine crystals to reach the 10th layer successfully. He really is the disciple of the divine King Duanmu after all. Just the pill room alone has so many precious pills. His wealth has completely surpassed the other overgods. Mo Ling and Ando Fu both sighed in amazement. The disciple of the divine King Duanmu was much wealthier than their ancestor. Chapter 1741. What? There's actually a soul recovery pill? Before Jianshun could say anything, Mo Ling and Ando Fu were both surprised. They stared at the white jade bottle in Shun Jian's hand in shock. Jianshun's eyes lit up as well. He had used 2 strands of profound sword chi consecutively, so the power of his soul was extremely depleted. He felt dizzy at all times, like an ordinary person who had not slept for several days. It was very uncomfortable. If the soul recovery pill really could recover the power of his soul, it would be of great significance to him. The profound sword chi was Jianshun's greatest trump card right now. At the same time, it was his greatest life-saving treasure. However, with his current cultivation, the power of his soul had basically been depleted after using 2 strands of profound sword chi. Before his soul recovered, he would not be able to use more profound sword chi. If he had a soul recovery pill that could quickly recover the power of his soul, would it not drastically shorten the time he needed to use the profound sword chi again? I wonder what the effects of the soul recovery pill are like. If it can recover the power of my soul extremely quickly, it'll be very useful to me. It might even be able to save my life, Jianshun thought. He accepted the jade bottle from Shun Jian. To no surprise, there were also 10 soul recovery pills in there. Jianshun poured out a round pill without any hesitation and studied it in his hand. The light in his eyes flickered as he became eager. It really is a soul recovery pill. It really is a soul recovery pill. It's exactly the same as what the records say. There's no mistaking the unique fragrance. I never thought there would be a treasure like a soul recovery pill here, Ando Fu said excitedly. Ancestor, you've been too careless. How is this the dwelling of a regular overgod? The treasures here have far exceeded what regular late overgods possess. There are even some pills that will be extremely useful to you. You shouldn't have given up on this dwelling in the past, Mo Ling said regretfully. He felt great pity. Jianshun became even more overjoyed when he heard what Mo Ling and Ando Fu had said. He studied the pill in great interest and murmured, "Looks like the soul recovery pill is quite valuable." Brother Jianshun, you don't know this, but the soul recovery pill isn't just valuable. It's basically priceless because only alchemists can refine it, and the materials used to refine it are extremely valuable. In a remote place like our divine kingdom of Pingtian, there are no pills like this for sale. Even if there are, they can't be bought with low-grade divine crystals. Instead, you need high-grade divine crystals or even supreme-grade divine crystals, Mo Ling explained to Jianshun. The soul recovery pill was very. It's that expensive. Jianshun and Shun Jian both leapt in fright. 100,000 high-grade divine crystals was equivalent to 10 million mid-grade divine crystals. At that moment, Jianshun's hands began to tremble slightly. The soul recovery pill was just too valuable. Even with his mental fortitude, he struggled to calm down. After all the wealth he had plundered from the Liu family and the Ando clan was probably not even as valuable as a single soul recovery pill. Jianshun immediately gave up on the thought of ingesting the soul recovery pill. He placed it back into the jade bottle without any hesitation. Eating a single soul recovery pill would cost him 10 million mid-grade divine crystals and a billion low-grade divine crystals. That was basically a waste. He did not even have enough divine crystals to buy a flying snow sword in Maple Leaf City. Jianshin, I suggest you ingest a soul recovery pill immediately so that you can recover to your peak condition as soon as possible. There must be quite a lot of people gathered outside. No one knows when they'll be able to come in, Fairy Hao Yue suggested. That's right. Now is not the time to be saving. We can't waste too much time, Shinjian said as well. Jianshan hesitated slightly when he heard that. In the end, he gritted his teeth and ingested a soul recovery pill. As soon as the soul recovery pill entered his stomach, Jianshan felt a cool sensation rise up. It directly entered his soul, and immediately the power of his soul that had basically been depleted rapidly recovered. In just a few seconds, the power of Jianshan's soul had completely recovered. Moreover, the effects of the soul recovery pill did not run out even after his soul had been replenished. Instead, it turned into strands of clear energy that were stored in his soul. Once his soul was depleted, it would immediately be replenished. What a wondrous pill! Jianshan could not help but sigh in amazement. A single soul recovery pill can completely recover the soul of an early overgod. If you use it on the Divine King, you'll need several or even several dozen of them, said Fairy Hao Yue. The power of Jianshan's soul was nowhere near as powerful as an overgod right now, so a single soul recovery pill was more than enough. However, once his strength increased in the future, the power of his soul would naturally increase as well. At that time, if he wanted to use the soul recovery pill to recover the power of his soul, he would need far more than that. This was because the amount of power of the soul that the soul recovery pill could recover was fixed. Afterwards, Jianshan gave Mo Ling and Ando Fu one each, which greatly moved the two of them. They were extremely excited. He shared the remaining pills with Shunjian. They're good pills, but it's a pity that there's only a single bottle. Jianshan sighed gently after putting the soul recovery pill away. He felt some pity. If only there were a few more bottles of soul recovery pills. Afterwards, Jianshin and the others did not come across any extraordinarily precious pills in the room. Most of them were ordinary items. In the end, they spent almost an hour to clear out all the bottles and jars in the room. Apart from the 10,000-year god origin pills, Jianshan gave a portion of the remaining pills to Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and the others. Even the elders did not return empty-handed. Jianshan, I, Ando Fu, will remember your kindness. If there's an opportunity in the future, I will definitely repay you, Ando Fu swore solemnly. Ando Fu swore on the spot. He was extremely serious about it. He had never thought that there would be such a straightforward person in the world. Even when he was completely outclassed in strength, he was still willing to give so many precious pills to a prisoner like him. If it were someone else, Ando Fu believed that he would not have been able to obtain anything at all. He might even have been killed on the spot. Brother Jianshan is truly a gentleman. It's my fortune to be able to meet Brother Jianshan, Mo Ling sighed. If it were him, the Ando clan, and the Liu family who discovered the pills here, the three clans would probably have immediately begun fighting over the pills. This was because the pills here were just too precious. Even the divine kingdom of Pingtian did not have a soul recovery pills, and just the 10,000-year god origin pills were priceless. Moreover, there were many other types of pills as well. There was no lack of precious items among them. Jianshan and the others made their way out of the alchemy room before entering the alchemy room, the seclusion room, and the scrolls pavilion. There was only an ancient cauldron in the alchemy room. The cauldron was of quite a high grade, so it was naturally taken away by Jianshan. As for the seclusion room, it was an empty room. There was nothing there at all. In the scrolls pavilion, there were some cultivation methods and battle skills, as well as some cultivation notes left behind by the owner of the dwelling. The cultivation notes had only been created by an overgod. Jianshan glanced through them casually before tossing them to Mo Ling and Ando Fu. As for the remaining cultivation methods and battle skills, Jianshan got Mo Ling and Ando Fu to choose a scroll each. He stowed the rest away. Although neither he nor Shanjian were interested in the cultivation methods and battle skills, they could be sold for quite a good price. Chapter 1742. The Sword Comprehension Building was actually only a stone hut with 2 floors. The walls around it were extremely smooth, like a mirror. There were no flaws at all. However, Jianshan and Shunjian could tell with a single glance that the walls had been ground away by a sharp and brutal sword intent. Moreover, when the 2 of them entered the hut, they could not help but feel like they had entered the body of sword. They could feel a surging sword chi. Sword spirit. It's at least sword spirit. Jianshan shivered inside when he sensed the invisible sword chi in the surroundings. He actually felt a suffocating pressure in the stone hut. This pressure came from his comprehension of the laws of the sword. After all, he was already at the great perfection of sword origin. Only sword spirits could pressure him in the way of sword. Suddenly, Jinshan's eyes narrowed. There was a sharp strand of sword chi on one of the walls of the hut. When his gaze landed on the sword chi, his entire body could not help but tremble. Vaguely, he seemed to sense a surging sword chi shooting toward him. Before the sword chi, Jianshan felt like he was a lone boat in the surging ocean, about to be swallowed by the waves at any time. He was as puny as an ant before the sword chi. Even though he had reached the great perfection of sword origin, he was still so puny. Jianshan remained as still as a mountain. His calm eyes immediately erupted with light at that moment. It was as if 2 streaks of light had shot out from his eyes, directly colliding with the incoming sword comprehension intent. He used the sword in the first place, and he possessed extremely great talent for the way of the sword. How could he allow himself to be defeated by the sword chi at a time like this? Even though he knew he was not the opponent, Jianshan would not just sit there and wait for death. He resisted with all his strength fearlessly. As Jianshan resisted with all his strength, he seemed to vaguely hear a boom that only he could sense explode in his mind. Vaguely, he felt like he had broken through some sort of shackle. His entire mind became empty, entering a wondrous state. In his daze, he seemed to see a hazy image. In the image, a green-robed person stood in the hut with his back to him. He radiated with a supreme presence, along with a powerful sword chi that even shocked Jianshan. At this time, the man in the green robe slowly raised the long sword in his hand. Suddenly, a monstrous sword chi burst out from the long sword, and he casually stabbed with the sword. This strike contained the trajectory of the supreme Grand Tao and the profundity of the laws of heaven and earth. It was a simple strike, but it contained a destructive power. When he stabbed out, Jianshan felt like the entire world had become clear. In particular, the strike filled his entire mind, making it seem like the only thing in the world. It drew in all of his attention, and he could clearly sense every single change in the strike. Jianshan could not help but close his eyes as he stood in the hut. He could not help but become intoxicated by the endless mysteries of the strike, comprehending it carefully and entering a state of comprehension. Aside from him, Shunjian also closed his eyes and entered a state of selflessness. Clearly, he had experienced the same thing as Jianshan. Fairy Haoyue glanced at Jianshan and Shunjian as a soul. She said to Mo Ling and Ando Fu secretly, "You can leave first. Don't disturb the 2 of them." Ando Fu and Mo Ling also glanced at the slash on the wall subconsciously. Unfortunately, they could not sense it at all, so they could not tell what it was. The strand of sword chi was clearly meant for imparting knowledge and not harming people. As a result, only those who had also comprehended the way of the sword could comprehend it. Mo Ling and Ando Fu did not walk the path of the way of the sword, so the sword mark was naturally useless against them. Ando Fu and Mo Ling left silently. They planned on checking the final storage room. As for the elders of the Mo clan and Ando clan, they did not know how long Jianshan and Shunjian would take. In order not to waste their precious time in the Divine King's dwelling, they all went to the dwelling they suspected to be Duanmu's grand disciple's dwelling. There were slashes for comprehending laws there. With their strength as deities, they just happened to be helpful to them. I hope you can make a breakthrough in the way of the sword. The path ahead will be even more difficult. The formations will be even more powerful. Even if I can find their weaknesses, you won't be able to get through them with your current strength. Only by becoming stronger can you make your way to Duanmu's dwelling. Fairy Haoyue murmured softly as she stared at Jianxin and Shun Jian, who had entered a state of selflessness. All she could do now was wait. The formations leading to the Divine King's dwelling were even more powerful. She could not enter as long as the formations remained. Whether she could make it to the very depths would all depend on Jianxin and Shun Jian. Suddenly, Fairy Haoyue's eyes narrowed. She abruptly turned her head towards the entrance of the Divine King's dwelling. The space there actually rippled. Fairy Haoyue frowned and said sternly, "Looks like the people outside will be coming in very soon. We don't have much time left." At this moment, a deafening rumble echoed through the surroundings outside God King Duanmu's dwelling. Several dozen overgods stood in a circle as they worked together to blow up the formations around the entrance. Every single one of the formations was extremely powerful. They possessed the power to deal with or even kill overgods. When several dozen of them detonated at the same time, the shockwave was naturally earth-shaking. It actually caused the space there to distort. Now, the number of overgods gathered here had increased to over 50. There were no longer just 4 participating divine kingdoms. Instead, there were 7 now. Among them, a white-haired old man with a sage-like demeanor stood at the very front. He held a yin-yang 8 trigrams disc in his hand and stared intently at the formation that had exploded. The overgods around the old man all treated him politely. They all behaved very humbly. This was because the old man was a renowned formations master they had invited. Not only was he well respected, but his cultivation was not weak either. He had reached late overgod, and he was known as Master Chanlong. At the same time, it was also this Master Chanlong who came up with the idea of casting down powerful formations around the entrance of the Divine King's dwelling before detonating them. They would create a powerful attack in an attempt to force out the entrance hidden in space. Just a little more. Let's do it again. This time, the entrance will definitely appear, Master Chanlong said leisurely as he hovered in the air. As a result, under Master Chanlong's personal lead, a few overgods who had studied formations quite a bit began to cast down formations once again. Several days later, Master Chanlong finally finished casting down the formations once again after several dozen overgods worked together. This time, there were over 100 formations, and they were all at the level of overgods. A few thousand meters away from this place, a young man with a folding fan in his hand was lying comfortably on a recliner with his eyes closed as if he was asleep. Beside this young man, 2 beautiful women were half squatting there, attentively massaging the young man's shoulders and legs. They were very serious. The 2 women were not weak either. They had already reached the deity realm. Let alone in the Dong and province, deities were powerful existences even in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. However, they were massaging a young man who was only a god right now. Even overgods would struggle to enjoy such treatment. This was because even in clans with overgods, deities possessed extraordinary statuses. It was impossible for them to be sent to do something for servants. However, there was not the slightest hint of coercion or reluctance on these 2 women's faces. Instead, both of them had excited looks on their faces. It was as if being able to massage this young man was a very fortunate thing. At this moment, the young man, who seemed to have fallen asleep on the recliner, opened his eyes. He yawned lazily and looked ahead in a rather sleepy manner. He said rather unhappily, "Why hasn't the entrance opened yet? Uncle Chin, how long have I been cultivating?" "Young master, you've already been cultivating for 5 years," the burly man behind the young man said emotionlessly. P.S. Xiaoyao has never made it to the top of the red packet rankings. This week, Xiaoyao will go all out. Every time the number of red packets reaches 500, Xiaoyao will add a chapter. Every time there are 500 red packets, Xiaoyao will add a chapter. This week, we will work hard towards first place. Chapter 1743. The young man sat up from the recliner slowly. He spread his fingers and opened the fan in his hand with a swish. He fanned himself gently as he looked at the formations cast down by the several dozen over-gods under Master Chanlong's command. He immediately became interested and said, "Uncle Qin, can you make the entrance hidden in outer space appear this time?" The burly man referred to as Uncle Qin shook his head gently. Although their method is correct, it's still a little lacking if they want to force out the entrance hidden in outer space. Duanmu has comprehended the laws of the sword and the laws of space. He has basically reached the limits of the Divine King in both of these laws. So it'll be difficult for these over-gods to force out the entrance hidden in outer space. The young man stood up from the recliner lazily. He just stood there and stretched his body before glancing at the two beautiful deities who stood to one side obediently. He could not help but smile faintly. With a flip of his hand, a jade bottle appeared in the young man's hand. The eyes of the burly man beside the young man widened when he saw the jade bottle in the young man's hand. His face twitched a few times in an abnormal manner. The young man poured out 2 pills from the bottle. The pills hovered in the air under the control of an invisible power, slowly arriving before the 2 women. The 2 women's gazes landed on the 2 pills, looking very excited. "I'm a man of my word. Since you've served me for 5 years, I naturally won't treat you badly. Here are 2 10,000-year God origin pills, 1 for each of you," the young man said nonchalantly. He was extremely generous. There was only a single 10,000-year God origin pill in the entire divine kingdom of Pingtian, and it had been brought back by the divine king of the divine kingdom of Pingtian from another divine kingdom. It was so expensive that it had yet to be sold even now. Although the 10,000-year God origin pill had a very great drawback, there was a second reason that prevented it from being sold, which was that it was just too expensive. "Thank you, young master. Thank you, young master." The 2 deities congratulated him. They were extremely excited as they stowed the pill away, carefully like they had obtained a supreme treasure. "All right, the 2 of you can leave now. Do what you need to do. I'll give you your freedom in advance," the young man said as he waved the fan in his hand. The 2 women expressed their gratitude and did not stay any longer. They left the place excitedly. They had only spent 5 years to obtain a precious 10,000-year God origin pill. To them, this was simply too worth it. It was like a meat pie falling from the sky. "Young master, I don't remember you ever having a 10,000-year God origin pill on you. Moreover, with your talent, the family would never give you such a pill. Did you secretly enter Elder Gu's pill room?" Uncle Qin asked after the 2 women left. The young man closed the fan in his hand and glanced at Uncle Qin in a slightly guilty manner. He said, "How could that be? Uncle Qin, you're thinking too much. Moreover, even you can't enter Elder Gu's pill recipe. So how can I? Don't you think so? But where did your 10,000-year God origin pill come from?" All right. "Uncle Qin, let's not talk about pills. It's just a 10,000-year God origin pill. With my status, obtaining it is a piece of cake," the young man interrupted Uncle Qin. Then, he looked around and stared at the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling. He said, "So many people have used 5 years, and they still haven't made the entrance appear. I don't have that much time to wait for them here. Uncle Qin, please help them out. If they continue like this, they'll just be wasting my time." Uncle Qin glanced at the young man rather helplessly and nodded slightly. "Detonate the formations." It was also at this moment that Master Chanlong's ancient voice rang out. Afterwards, a deafening rumble suddenly rang out. All the over-god level formations at the entrance detonated at the same time, forming a powerful attack that ripped through the space there. The space immediately trembled gently. However, with so many over-god level formations detonated at the same time, the terrifying attack was still not enough to rip through the space there. It was also in the moment that the formations detonated that Uncle Qin, beside the young man, took action as well. He only raised a finger and extended it gently at the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling. This point immediately caused the space in front of him to silently ripple. This finger seemed extremely ordinary, like an ordinary person casually pointing a finger. However, this finger shook the space here. However, at that moment, everyone's gazes were gathered in the direction of God King Duanmu's dwelling. None of them noticed Uncle Chin's finger. It was also after Uncle Chin extended his finger that the space at the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling shook violently. The space there seemed to be ripped open, revealing a stone door hidden in the space there. The powerful shockwave from the explosion of several dozen over-god-level formations was unable to shake the stone door at all. The entrance has appeared. It's the door that leads to the Divine King's entrance. Master Chanlong really is a formations master after all. He really is powerful. He's actually managed to force the entrance to the Divine King's dwelling out of space. Master Chanlong, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. The over-gods in the surroundings all praised Master Chanlong. They all praised him. Master Chanlong stroked his snow-white beard as he held the 8 trigrams disc in his hand. He smiled mysteriously, and his face was filled with confidence. When a young man with a folding fan saw this scene from afar, the corners of his mouth curled up into a meaningful smile. There's a powerful formation on the stone door. Please help me get through it, Master Chanlong. Master Chanlong will be relying on you for this formation. The over-gods in the surroundings all invited Master Chanlong to continue getting through the formation. Their voices were filled with even more respect. As long as the entrance has appeared, the formation will be much easier to deal with. As long as it's a formation, it needs energy to operate. As long as the energy is depleted, the formation will collapse no matter how powerful it is. I'll let old man take a look at the weakness of the formation, Jianshun said loudly. He arrived before the stone door with his head held high and his chest puffed out. He stared at the stone door attentively. The moment the entrance to God King Duanmu's dwelling appeared, the entire space within the dwelling began to tremble gently, as if it had suffered a powerful attack. Fairy Haoyue looked in the direction of the entrance from outside the Sword Comprehension building, and she became stern. She murmured, "There's less and less time left." Chapter 1744. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. Outside the entrance of the Divine King's dwelling, a gleam of light suddenly flashed through Master Chanlong's eyes as he studied the formation. He said, "It's here. Everyone, attack with your full strength." Without any hesitation, the several dozen over-gods all struck out. They attacked the weakness that Master Chanlong had mentioned with all their might. Even though this was the weakness of the formation, it was still a formation personally cast down by God King Duanmu, after all. It would not be easy for the over-gods to get through it with their strength. Several dozen over-gods bombarded the weak point of the formation for 10 days and 10 nights. Only then did they destroy it. However, the stone door remained shut. The light of the formation continued to flicker outside. There was more than one formation there. There are a total of 18 formations on the stone door. There are 17 left. Let's get old man to study the second formation. Master Chanlong swung his sleeves and continued to study before the formation. This person has some accomplishments in formations. If this continues, all of Duanmu's formations will be destroyed sooner or later, Uncle Chin said nonchalantly as he watched from afar. A year later, 8 of the 18 formations on the stone door had been broken. There were still 10 formations left to block the group. At the same time, Shun Jian roused from his selfless state in the Sword Comprehension building in the Divine King's dwelling. After this period of comprehension, his laws of the sword had reached the great perfection of sword origin, while Jianshun was still comprehending. He had yet to awaken. Shun Jian did not disturb Jianshun. He made his way out of the stone hut silently. The longer one comprehended like this, the greater the benefits. Jianshun's laws of the sword had already reached the great perfection of sword origin before Shun Jian, so he had spent even more time comprehending. Coupled with Jianshun's talent, Shun Jian realized that Jianshun's laws of the sword might break through. Afterwards, Shun Jian sat down outside the Sword Comprehension building. He placed the Cloud Stream sword on his knees and formed a seal with his hands. He began to cultivate again. Before long, a mysterious power began to radiate from his body. In the end, it actually gradually formed specks of light, flickering around Shun Jian. In a daze, the flickering light formed a diagram of the cosmos around Shun Jian. As for Shun Jian, he was an incomparably tall giant sitting cross-legged in the middle of the galaxy. He was now a god, so he could use the second move of a will that splits the heavens. Although he had used the second move against the evil spirit before, he had paid a huge price to forcefully use it. Not only was its power, but it was also its essence. He was still very far away from truly grasping the essence of the second move. As a result, he needed to carefully comprehend the second move of a will that splits the heavens now that his cultivation had reached God. This battle skill is of quite a high grade. It looks like Shun Jian has obtained the legacy of a great figure as well, or he would never be able to grasp such a high-grade battle skill. Moreover, even his sword is definitely not as simple as it seems. Fairy Haoyue stared at Shun Jian from afar as the light in her eyes flickered. Another half a year passed like this. Suddenly, a powerful sword intent radiated from the sword comprehension building. Sword chi revolved around Jianshan as he stood in the sword comprehension building. Silver-white sword chi that was only the size of a finger seemed to have transformed in a fish, swimming around Jianshan happily. Compared to the sword chi Jianshan used in the past, these sword chi were no longer as rigid as before. Instead, they seemed to possess intelligence, as if every single strand of sword chi possessed life. Jinshan's laws of the sword had finally broken through after this period of comprehension. He had officially reached sword spirit from the great perfection of sword origin. Over God-level comprehension of the laws of the world. The light in Fairy Haoyue's eyes flickered when she sensed the disturbance in the sword comprehension building. Surprise filled her face. At this moment, Jinshan's comprehension of the laws of the sword was equivalent to an overgod. Even I feel slightly envious of Jinshan's comprehension ability. Fairy Haoyue sighed emotionally. When she first met Jinshan on the Tianyuan continent, Jinshan was still a sainthood cultivator. He had not even comprehended the laws of the world. Yet in just a few years, he had gone from mortal to where he was today. He was already equivalent to an overgod. The only flaw was that Jinshan's personal cultivation was just too low. The 9th layer of the chaotic body was only equivalent to a deity. Jianshan was probably the only person in the entire saints world who had comprehended the laws of the world as a deity and as an overgod. This was because it was just too difficult for him to break through to the next layer of the chaotic body. He required tremendous amounts of cultivation resources. The sword chi around Jinshan settled down very soon, but he did not leave the sword comprehension building. Instead, he directly made his way to the second floor. The second floor was extremely spacious as well. There was only a stone table in the center, and there was a scroll on the table. Jianshan arrived before the stone table and carefully checked it. Only after confirming that there was no danger did he pick up the scroll and slowly unfurl it. The moment the scroll was unfurled, Jianshan's eyes narrowed. He felt like the scroll seemed to expand rapidly in his eyes, becoming boundless in the blink of an eye. In the end, it turned into a world of mountains and rivers, and he stood in that world of mountains and rivers. A middle-aged man in a green robe had silently appeared in front of him. The middle-aged man had a heroic appearance and a dignified appearance. He had sharp, sword-like eyebrows and eyes that were as bright as the stars. His body radiated with a surging sword intent. The sword intent was so powerful that even Jianshan, who had reached sword spirit, felt extremely pressured. The divine King Duanmu. Jinshan's heart shuddered. Even though he had never seen the man before him before, he was extremely certain that the man was the master of the dwelling, the divine King Duanmu. However, this was not the divine King Duanmu's true form. It was a projection he had left behind in the past. This scroll should have been used by the divine King Duanmu to teach his disciples, Jinshan thought. At this moment, the divine King Duanmu began to swing his sword in the air. His swordsmanship was brutal and sharp. Every single strike was filled with sharp sword chi. His attacks were extremely terrifying. Every single strike would touch the trajectories of the ways of the world, as if they had fused with the ways and possessed the power of the laws of the world. This was a scroll that the divine King Duanmu had left behind. He had imprinted all of his comprehensions of the laws of the sword into the scroll without holding back, passing it on selflessly. The person who passed it on was not Jianshun, but his disciple. However, now that Jianshun had come into contact with the scroll and brought it into the illusionary world, he naturally treated Jianshun as the divine King Duanmu's disciple. After all, the scroll was an inanimate object. It did not possess any intelligence, so it was naturally unable to differentiate between the two. Jianshun remained in the illusionary world of the scroll. He stared at the divine King Duanmu as he swung his sword in the air as if he was intoxicated. He carefully comprehended every single use of the laws of the sword that the divine King Duanmu used. Not only does the divine King Duanmu use the laws of the sword, but he also uses the laws of space as well. Jianshun's heart skipped a beat. He was filled with admiration. Not only did the divine King Duanmu possess great accomplishments in the laws of the sword, but his comprehension of the laws of space had also reached an extremely profound level. Chapter 1745. I originally comprehended the laws of space as well, but they were stripped away by the sword spirits so that I could focus on the way of the sword. If I were to comprehend other ways while studying the way of the sword, it would definitely be a waste of time and effort. It'll just prolong the time it takes for me to reach the peak of the way of the sword, Jianshun thought. He agreed with what the sword spirits had done very much. Focusing all of his attention on the way of the sword would indeed allow him to reach the peak of the way of the sword in the shortest amount of time. If he were to comprehend other ways while studying the way of the sword, it would indeed take quite a lot of time and effort. Although the peak experts of both the Immortals world and the Saints world grasped more than one way, many of them would first comprehend the first way to an extremely profound level, standing at the apex of their world. They would only begin to comprehend other ways after they possessed enough power to protect themselves. Even if something unexpected happened, they would still be able to protect themselves. If they comprehended several ways right from the start, it would take quite a lot of time and effort. No matter how great their talent was, it would take them a long time to reach the apex. It was extremely likely that they would die during that time due to various reasons. Whether it was the Immortals world or the Saints world, there were many supreme prodigies who died. I don't know the laws of space anymore, so I'll ignore the Divine King's laws of space. I'll just comprehend his way of the sword. Jianshun calmed himself down and comprehended carefully. Jianshun could not sense the flow of time at all. After who knew how much time had passed, the Divine King finally stopped brandishing his sword. His figure gradually faded into outer space, vanishing in a few seconds. Jianshun's consciousness retreated from the scroll as well. The scroll in his hand had closed by itself. At the same time, he discovered that Shun Jian had appeared beside him at some point in time. This scroll will be of great help to us. Take a look. I need to enter secluded cultivation immediately. Jianshun passed the scroll to Shun Jian before leaving the building and entering secluded cultivation. As for Shun Jian, he opened the scroll just like Jianshun, and his consciousness was also sucked into the scroll world, experiencing the same thing as Jianshun. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. After a month of seclusion, Jianshun finally emerged. During this period of seclusion, he had completely digested the insights he had gained from watching the divine King Duanmu perform his sword dance. This had deepened his comprehension of the way of the sword. Even though he was still stuck at the minor achievement of sword spirit, he had undoubtedly taken a huge step towards the intermediate achievement of sword spirit. He was much closer to the intermediate achievement of sword spirit. Shun Jian had benefited greatly from the scroll as well. Although he was still at the great perfection of sword origin, he was much closer to sword spirit now. Of course, being able to comprehend so much from the divine King Duanmu's scroll all depended on their talent and comprehension ability. The greater their comprehension ability, the more they would benefit. If someone with ordinary comprehension were to obtain the divine King Duanmu's scroll, they would not be able to benefit from it even if they read it 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times. If one did not have enough aptitude, Even if the simplest Tao imparting scroll was placed in front of them, they would not be able to enter the door and would not gain anything. Jianshan frowned as soon as he emerged from the cultivation room. He looked in the direction of the exit of the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. That was where they had entered from. There were actually rumbles from there. You've sensed it too. The people outside are attacking the entrance. They'll be here before long. Fairy Haiyue arrived before Jianshan and said sternly. Jianshan became stern as well. Although his strength had skyrocketed and his comprehension of the laws of the sword had reached sword spirit, he knew that there would definitely be a large group of overgods gathered outside right now. He was invincible below overgod with his current strength, but he still did not stand a chance against an overgod. This was because those who could become overgods would not be any weaker than him in terms of comprehension of the laws of the world. Some overgods might even be more powerful than him. Before overgods, his comprehension of the laws of the world would not hold an advantage. Moreover, there was a huge flaw in his personal cultivation. Once a battle broke out, he would definitely lose. The light in Jianshan's eyes flickered. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth, and with a flip of his hand, he took out 2 white jade bottles from his space ring. To no surprise, there was the symbol of 10,000-year god origin pills on the outside of the bottles. I can only consume the 10,000-year god origin pills now. It's a pity that I only have 20 of them. I wonder if I can reach the 10th layer of the chaotic body with these 20 pills, Jianshan said in a deep voice. Faced with the threat of so many overgods, he could only consume the 10,000-year god origin pills beforehand. Only by becoming stronger would he be able to protect himself against the overgods. Jianshan turned around and entered the cultivation room. He continued his cultivation, but this time he did not cultivate to comprehend the laws of the sword. Instead, he consumed the 10,000-year god origin pills to increase his strength. Jianshan sat in the gloomy room. He opened a jade bottle and took out a 10,000-year god origin pill. He ingested it without any hesitation at all. As soon as the 10,000-year god origin pill reached his stomach, it immediately erupted as an extremely violent energy within Jianshan's body. Jianshan felt like he had not ingested a pill at all, but a bomb. If someone with a weaker body had ingested such a violent energy, they probably would have exploded instantly. However, Jianshan cultivated the chaotic body. Even if the effects of the pills were several times more potent, Jianshan could still endure them because the toughness of his body was one of the greatest advantages of the chaotic body. Jianshan directly ignored the aftereffects of the pills. He ingested all 20 of them, turning them into violent energy that wreaked havoc in his body before gradually being refined into chaotic force. The chaotic Niden in his dantian expanded bit by bit as well. Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and over a dozen godded elders had gathered outside the cultivation room. All of them were worried. The disturbance from the Divine King's entrance was becoming greater and greater. Even with their strength, they could sense it clearly, which filled all of them with unease. After all, they were the first people to enter the dwelling. Once the overgods outside barged in, they would definitely suspect that they had profited greatly. They would never let them go. A month later, Jianshan had consumed all 20 10,000-year god origin pills. However, to Jianshan's disappointment, they did not allow him to break through to the 10th layer of the chaotic body. Chapter 1746. Jianshan emerged from the cultivation room with a heavy heart. The amount of energy he needed to raise his chaotic body from the 9th layer to the 10th layer was just far too tremendous. 20 10,000-year god origin pills were not enough. According to his estimations, he would need at least 80 10,000-year god origin pills to reach the 10th layer. Although he still possessed some heavenly resources from the Xianhuang microcosm, he was just too far away from the 10th layer. Even if he consumed the heavenly resources, he would not be able to reach the 10th layer. This was because he could not consume too many heavenly resources, or his body would develop a resistance to the heavenly resources, which would drastically reduce their effects. If he was close to the 10th layer, when Jianshan emerged from the cultivation room, Shun Jian, Ando Fu, and Mo Ling, and the other deities had all gathered there. They had all been alarmed by the growing disturbance at the entrance of the divine king's dwelling, so they were all extremely stern. The people outside will come in very soon. We need to venture deeper into the dwelling, Shun Jian said with a deep voice. The divine king's dwelling was indeed very large, but there was nowhere for people to hide. Once the people outside surged in, they would definitely search the entire dwelling. It would be impossible to hide before overgods. Brother Jianshun, we've collected everything in the storage room. Whether it's useful or not, we've stored it all in this space ring. Moreover, there are some divine crystals in the storage room. They're all high-grade divine crystals. Mo Ling passed the space ring to Jianshun. Jianshun accepted the space ring and checked it. He discovered that it was filled with various miscellaneous items. Many of them had no practical use and were only for decoration. There were even some coins that only appeared in the world of mortals. Jianshun was naturally not interested in these items, so he glanced through them hurriedly. In the end, he discovered the divine crystals that Mo Ling had mentioned. There were not many divine crystals. There were only 3 pieces, but every single one of them was frighteningly large. Even Jianshun became stunned when he saw them. A divine crystal was the size of a pinky finger. It was around a centimeter in length, width, and height. However, the 3 divine crystals were so large that they were actually cubes that were a meter long. Jianshun took out the divine crystal from his space ring. He could not help but sigh in amazement when he saw the large piece of high-grade divine crystal. The largest high-grade divine crystal he had ever seen was only the size of a person's head. Yet the divine crystal before him was several dozen times the size of the largest divine crystal he had ever seen. This is a block of divine crystal. A block of divine crystal is a meter in length, width, and height, so a block of divine crystal is equivalent to 1,000,000 standard divine crystals. Divine crystals like this are often used in large transactions. Fairy Haoyue's voice rang out. Mo Ling, Ando, Fu, and the other deities all looked at the block of divine crystal enviously. To them, just high-grade divine crystals were rare, let alone such a large piece of high-grade divine crystal. However, they also understood that even though they wanted the divine crystal very much, they could only look and touch it. They would never be able to get a share of it in the end. With our current level of cultivation, using high-grade divine crystals to cultivate is truly too wasteful. I feel that we should exchange all of these high-grade divine crystals for mid-grade divine crystals after we get out of here. That way, we can increase our cultivation even more. High-grade divine crystals were usually used by overgods, but with his cultivation as a god, mid-grade divine crystals were more than enough for him. As for low-grade divine crystals, they were basically used by people below the sky god realm. The help they provided to the sky god realm was almost negligible. Shun Jian had already wasted quite a lot of high-grade divine crystals to break through to God. Now, even if all 3 blocks of high-grade divine crystals were given to him, it would not be enough for him to reach mid-god. If that was the case, he would be better off exchanging them for mid-grade divine crystals. A block of high-grade divine crystals was equivalent to 1,000,000 standard high-grade divine crystals. If they were converted to mid-grade divine crystals, a block of high-grade divine crystals would be worth 100 million mid-grade divine crystals. 100 million mid-grade divine crystals was enough for Shun Jian to break through from early god to mid-god. Since using these 3 blocks of divine crystals won't increase our strength, why don't we just leave them for now? We'll exchange them all once we get out. Jianshun nodded and stowed the block of divine crystals away in his space ring. Bang! At this moment, a heavy sound rang out from the entrance. It was even louder than before, and the space there distorted violently. It looks like the people outside have destroyed another formation. We can't waste any more time. We need to leave immediately and go deeper, Fairy Haoyue said sternly. The situation was becoming more and more urgent. Without any hesitation, they immediately set off. They directly made their way to the depths of the dwelling. That was where the divine King Duanmu cultivated. The formations on the way to where the divine King Duanmu cultivated became more and more powerful. They had even gradually surpassed the level of overgods and reached the level of the divine king. Even though the formations they came across along the way had been destroyed by the three overgods, the remnant formations still radiated with terrifying power, causing the hearts of Jinshin's group to thump. They were filled with fear as they became extremely cautious. Very soon, Jinshin discovered 3 skeletons up ahead. They were covered in a thin layer of dust, clearly having died many years ago. Ancestor Mo Ling and Ando Fu could not help but tremble violently when they saw the 3 skeletons. The 2 of them knelt on the ground as sorrow filled their faces. After so many years, this was the first time they had seen the remains of their ancestor. Although they had entered the dwelling in the past, they did not dare to venture any further due to their weak strength. Jinshin also looked at the 3 skeletons, and his expression became mixed. After all, these were 3 overgods. They had only managed to obtain Duanmu's Divine King's Jade after so much effort, obtaining the key to the Divine King's dwelling. However, not only had they failed to obtain any benefits from the dwelling, but they had even died. This is a hidden killing formation. The 3 of them accidentally fell into it, which is why they were slain. "Let's avoid this place," said Fairy Haoyue. She led the way for Jinshin and the others. Mo Ling and Ando Fu suppressed their sorrow and bowed towards the skeletons from afar. Afterwards, they followed behind Jinshin and made their way around the place. The 3 of them also understood that the ancestors' remains were trapped in the killing formation. They were unable to take them away at all. As a matter of fact, they did not even dare to approach the place. After advancing for several hundred meters, they stopped once again. A formation had blocked their path. This formation is extremely powerful. I don't know if you can get through it. I'll find the weakness of the formation, so all of you can try attacking it as hard as you can, said Fairy Haoyue. She stared at the formation for a while before suddenly pointing at a spot 3 inches to the southeast. Attack! Chapter 1747. As soon as Fairy Haoyue finished speaking, Jinshin and the others struck out as hard as they could at the same time. Over a dozen deities fell into a formation as well, unleashing their strongest attack together. On the other hand, Ando Fu and Mo Ling unleashed all their strength, using their most powerful battle skills to attack the weaknesses of the formation. Specks of stars appeared around Shunjian. As he stabbed out with his Cloudstream sword as hard as he could, a river of stars immediately appeared. The sky flickered with light as pure and powerful energy surged out, bolstering the Cloudstream sword. It shot out as a powerful sword chi. Shunjian used the second move of a will that splits the heavens that he had comprehended recently without any hesitation, the Sword Finger Galaxy illusion. This time, the Sword Finger Galaxy illusion was clearly much stronger than when he used it against the evil spirit. Even a late heavenly god would have to suffer in front of this move of Shunjian's, unless his opponent also possessed the battle prowess of a Sky Pride. 2 finger-sized strands of silver-white sword chi hovered above Jinshin's head. They radiated with surging sword chi, and with a thought, the 2 strands of profound sword chi shot out at the same time. They moved extremely quickly, as if they had surpassed lightning. They struck the weak points of the formation that Fairy Haoyue had pointed out in a single instance. Everyone basically launched their full-powered attacks at the same time. With a great boom, Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and the elders all staggered back from the terrifying shockwaves of energy. In particular, the elders all vomited blood as their faces paled. Since Jinshin had launched the 2 strands of profound sword chi at the same time, the attack had reached the level of overgods. Just the shockwaves of energy had heavily injured the elders. Even Mo Ling and Ando Fu constantly staggered back. As the violent shockwaves of energy gradually expanded, the faces of Jinshin and the others became extremely ugly. They had all launched their most powerful attacks without holding back at all. They had even used their greatest trump cards, but the formation remained intact. It seems like we can only stop here. Seeing this, Hayu softly sighed. He was full of helplessness. Jianshun was also somewhat disheartened. The strength of the formation along the way to the divine, King Duanmu's secret training ground was beyond his imagination. Even though his strength had increased in this cave, he was still far from being able to break the formation here. Boom! At this moment, a loud noise that shook the entire cave came from the exit. Violent energy turbulence came from afar, making the faces of Jianshun and the others turn ugly. Everyone, including Jianshun, felt a great pressure from the ripples of energy. Even late gods would probably die before the ripples of energy. After all, they had gathered all the attacks from several dozen overgods. It was so powerful that even overgods needed to avoid it. Afterwards, dense origin energy surged in from the entrance of the cave, causing the divine King Duanmu's cave to change from being devoid of origin energy. It was now filled with dense origin energy like the outside world. The entrance to the cave has been destroyed, Hayu said with a heavy voice. He became extremely stern. With a flip of his hand, a white jade bottle appeared in his hand. He did not have the time to worry about his loss. He directly poured out a soul recovery pill and swallowed it, recovering the power of his soul. He was going to face many overgods next, so he needed to recover to his peak condition. "Let's enter the bright moon divine hall," said Fairy Haoyue. Fairy Haoyue said sternly. Afterwards, her illusionary figure suddenly vanished, having entered the divine hall. Afterwards, she controlled the divine hall to fly out of Jinshin's space ring. It landed on the ground and turned into a majestic divine hall. The doors to the divine hall were wide open. "Come in if you don't want to die. Remember, all of you must seal up your cultivation in my divine hall." Fairy Haoyue's voice rang out from the divine hall. Mo Ling, Ando Fu, and the other deities knew how fragile the bright moon divine hall was, so none of them had any objections. They all sealed up their cultivation and concealed their presences as they entered the divine hall quickly. "Shun Jian, all the overgods will come in later. You should go to the bright moon divine hall as well," Jianshun said when he saw Shun Jian hesitate. Shun Jian was an early god, and his comprehension of the laws of the sword was equivalent to late gods. He was still an extremely great distance away from becoming an overgod. Shun Jian clearly understood this as well. After hesitating slightly, he told Jianshun to be careful before entering the divine hall as well. Once everyone had entered the divine hall rapidly shrank before entering Jianshun's space ring. In the blink of an eye, only Jianshun remained outside the divine king's dwelling. Although the divine king's dwelling was very large, there was nowhere for him to hide. He could not escape the search of overgods, so Jianshun did not hide. Fortunately, he sat down where he was and waited for the people outside to enter. The power of his soul that he had depleted from using the 2 strands of profound sword chi recovered rapidly with the assistance of the soul recovery pill. A few seconds later, tremendous presences appeared at the entrance of the divine king's dwelling. The overgods outside had already entered the dwelling. Several dozen powerful senses of the soul swept through the dwelling fearlessly before all gathering on Jianshun. There's actually someone inside? I heard that someone entered the dwelling a few years ago. Is it him? A surprised exclamation rang out from the entrance of the dwelling. Afterwards, the overgods gathered there all flew towards Jianshun. Overgods moved extremely quickly. In just a few seconds, the overgods appeared before Jianshun. Every single one of them radiated with powerful presences that were as tremendous as the ocean. The person at the very front was an sagely old man. He held an 8 trigrams disc in his hand. He was Master Chanlong. Jianshun slowly opened his eyes as well. He stood up from the ground. After a short moment of recovery, the power of his soul had completely recovered. He slowly glanced past the overgods gathered there and said emotionlessly, "I never thought that there would actually be over 60 overgods. That has exceeded my expectations. I never thought that the temptation of the divine king's dwelling would be so great." Even though Jianshun faced a very great pressure inside, he remained unfazed on the surface. He showed no fear at all. Indeed, the number of overgods who had come had increased from around 50 to over 60. They had gathered the peak experts of several divine kingdoms in the surroundings. Every single one of them was the ancestor of an organization, and they were a handful of peak experts in their respective divine kingdoms. They were existences that stood above the clouds. "Brother, who are you? Which clan or sect do you come from?" Master Coiling Dragon looked at Jianshin indifferently. Basically, none of the overgods knew about the story of the Divine King's Jade, nor did they know that the Divine King's Jade had once been controlled by 3 small clans with only gods. Now that they saw Jianshin in the dwelling, they naturally began to suspect Jianshin's background and origins. Chapter 1748. As a result, none of the overgods responded to Master Chanlong's question. They all stared at Jianshin coldly. "I am Jianshin. I belong to no sect, just an independent cultivator." Jianshin clasped his hands emotionlessly. The overgods all let out a sigh of relief when they heard that Jianshin was an independent cultivator. Afterwards, their gazes towards Jianshin became even sharper. "Kid, the key to the dwelling is with you. Who knows how many times you've come here in the past? You must have benefited greatly in the past few years." A skinny, middle-aged man walked out from the crowd and glared at Jianshin. At the same time, a powerful presence radiated from him, directly crushing towards Jianshin. The skinny, middle-aged man was an early overgod. When his presence crushed towards Jianshin, Jianshin immediately felt like he was in a surging sea, where endless waves slammed towards him. If he had not broken through with the laws of the sword, he definitely would not have been able to withstand the middle-aged man's powerful presence. However, his laws of the sword had reached sword spirit now. Although his personal cultivation was still lacking, he was at the same level as the middle-aged man after all. As a matter of fact, he was slightly more powerful than the middle-aged man. Jianshin's face did not change. Suddenly, a sharp sword chi radiated from him. At that moment, he seemed to have become a shining sword. The powerful, invisible sword chi directly shattered the middle-aged man's tremendous presence. The middle-aged man's presence was unable to approach Jianshin at all. Jianshin did not lose out at all in a clash of presences because his cultivation was no lower than the skinny, middle-aged man's. A gleam of light flashed through the middle-aged man's eyes. He stared at Jianshin in surprise, as if he had never thought that Jianshin's comprehension of laws would be on the same level as his. He's actually comprehended the laws of the sword. A gentle voice of surprise rang out from behind the crowd. An old man with an ancient sword on his back walked out. To no surprise, he was Ling Hogong from the sword-seeking province of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. Ling Hogong stared at Jianshin with shining eyes. His eyes shone brighter and brighter as he smiled. "Old man, you've finally come across an overgod who has also comprehended the laws of the sword. Jianshin, once the matter with the Divine King Duanmu is over, why don't we find an opportunity to spar? We can discuss the way of the sword together." Ling Hogong's gaze was magnanimous as righteousness revolved around him. He seemed like a gentleman, and his eyes were filled with surprise and joy. He was a sword fanatic, but ever since he became an overgod, he could no longer find an expert at the same level as him to spar with. Because of this, he had once left the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian and traveled through the surrounding divine kingdoms. Although he had come across a few people who had also comprehended the laws of the sword, they were basically all deities and gods. He had never seen an overgod who had comprehended the laws of the sword, which filled him with great regret. Yet today, he had come across an overgod who had comprehended the laws of the sword after so many years of searching to no avail. How could Ling Hogong not be excited? As Ling Hogong walked out, a sliver of fear flashed through the eyes of many of the surrounding overgods. Although Ling Hogong was an early overgod, he comprehended the laws of the sword, one of the laws with the greatest offensive prowess among the 3,000 laws. With the laws of destruction and the laws of slaughter, Ling Hogong was extremely powerful. Very few overgods who had comprehended other laws were his opponent at the same level of cultivation. As a matter of fact, Ling Ho Gong had even fought against a mid-over-god who had comprehended the laws of fire in the past. The battle actually ended in a draw. From then on, Ling Ho Gong's name spread across all the divine kingdoms in the surroundings. Jianshun could naturally sense that Ling Ho Gong was a straightforward person, or it would have been impossible for him to be surrounded by righteousness. As a result, he clasped his fist and said, "If the opportunity arises in the future, I will definitely discuss the sword with Senior." "Haha, what Senior?" "Jianshun, you could just call me Ling Ho Gong." Ling Ho Gong laughed loudly. Ling Ho Gong laughed aloud. He was overjoyed that he had found an over-god who had comprehended the laws of the sword with him. However, Ling Ho Gong's eyes narrowed soon afterwards. He stared at Jianshun in surprise and doubt and said, "Jianshun, what's your cultivation? You don't seem to be an over-god." Ling Ho Gong was extremely surprised when he saw through Jianshun's cultivation. Although he was unable to see through Jianshun's strength accurately, the senses of an over-god were astonishing. He discovered that not only was Jianshun not an over-god, but he was not even a god. An over-god who has comprehended laws with such a low level of cultivation. Ling Ho Gong was extremely shocked. A situation like Jianshun's was extremely rare in the Saints' world because no one possessed such a heaven-defying ability to comprehend laws. Their comprehension of laws had actually surpassed their cultivation by so much. Moreover, he could tell with a single glance that Jianshun's cultivation was low. It was not because he was injured. Instead, he really had yet to cultivate. Ling Ho Gong could sense Jianshun's abnormality, so the other over-gods could naturally tell as well. Immediately, the light in their eyes flickered. "Looks like you've benefited a lot in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling," the skinny man sneered. He yelled at Jianshun coldly. "So what if your comprehension is at the level of an over-god? You're still not the opponent of an over-god with such a huge difference in cultivation. Kid, hand over your space ring obediently and tell us what kind of fortuitous encounter you've obtained in the dwelling that allowed your comprehension of laws to increase so quickly. If your answer satisfies us, we might spare you. Otherwise, you should know what the consequences are." Jianshun's face immediately sank when he heard the skinny man's vicious words. Jianshun stared at him coldly and growled, "If you want my space ring, then take it yourself. Let's see if you have the right to take it or not. You're looking to die." Killing intent flashed through the skinny man's eyes. A spear appeared in his hand, and he directly stabbed it towards Jianshun with the laws of wood. Although Jianshun's comprehension of the laws of the sword was no weaker than his personal cultivation was not worth mentioning. As a result, the skinny man naturally did not treat Jianshun with any importance. Even though that was the case, the skinny man did not become careless. He used the power of laws as soon as he struck out. A cold light flashed through Jianshun's eyes. However, at this moment, Ling Ho Gong struck out. He directly drew the ancient sword on his back, and it shone brightly as it landed on the skinny man's spear with surging sword chi. Just this strike forced the skinny man to take a step back. "Ling Ho Gong, what are you doing?" The skinny man glared at Ling Ho Gong as a sliver of fear flashed through the depths of his eyes. "The divine King Duanmu is dead, so the treasures will naturally belong to the fated," Ling Ho Gong said righteously as he held his sword. The skinny man's face sank. If Ling Ho Gong really wanted to protect Jianshun, there really was nothing he could do with his strength. However, when he glanced past all the over-gods around him, he could not help but sneer. Ling Ho Gong was very powerful, but there were still a few people who could suppress him here. Just when the skinny, middle-aged man wanted to ask someone to suppress Ling Ho Gong, Jianshun's voice rang out. "Ling Ho Gong, since he wants my space ring so much, let him come and take it. If he wants my space ring, let's see if he has the ability or not."